Hey, what's up? And welcome to Let's Do Lunch with Nate. It is a series that I'm doing with conversations with various artists, community leaders, and entrepreneurs throughout the DMV and beyond. And I'm here today with a gentleman, Mr. Freddie, and we're having a conversation on mind and body and just supporting Black men from a more holistic standpoint versus straight to the point, punishment. But I'm one of the reasons that I'm doing this conversation today is because I've been watching Mr. Freddie on his Instagram go through this 25-day challenge, and I wanted to just ask him a couple questions about what it was like because. Doing these challenges, I think people do them because they're popular. And if you're doing them right, you go through a bit of struggle going through them because you're really facing yourself in that moment. And I wanted to give Mr. Freddie opportunity to first introduce himself, and then we can get into the conversation for today.
Okay. Well, thank you very much again, Nate. Thank you very much for taking the time to bring me on to your platform and being able to just share a bit about myself. Again, my name is Frederick, and I am a mental health coach and advocate. And a little bit about my story, and it's going to lead into the 25-day challenge, is that my battle with mental health, anxiety, and depression actually goes back a year. So 2019, summer of 2019, I was arrested for the domestic case. It was an assault charge that I was convicted of with my ex-girlfriend. And
With Nate, it is. Go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
There was a little feedback.
Okay. So yeah, I was arrested and I had to go through a counseling program upon me being released to, just to prevent, something like that from happening again. So I went to the program, and initially, there was a bunch of kickback on my end because, I wasn't really raised in a rough, sort of rough and tough way or, a really bad environment. But what I notice more nowadays is that young African-American males, we don't really get those serious conversations to our mental health and our mental well-being. There's always the physical, and, we always have to be strong and, put together well and, man up, those kind of things and, get over it and grow up. Those kind of conversations are more common than hey, how are you doing? Someone checking in with you to see how you're doing, to see how you're feeling. Those kind of conversations are few and far between. So going through the program, I had that resistance. Like, I don't need this. I don't need therapy. I'm a man. I'm gonna go ahead and man up, get over this, and get back to life. So the more and more I began to speak and talk to the therapist as well as to the other brothers in that program, the more I had a sort of epiphany, for lack of a better word, of, but this isn't that bad. Being open with myself in front of other people who are going through the same problems isn't so bad. And so closer to the end of the program, I've had conversations with my therapist for long periods of time. I probably talked the brothers' ears off, but it was just becoming more and more comfortable to have those kind of conversations, to check in and see how we're doing, to feedback off of each other. Like, oh man, I didn't realize that you could go about dealing with your mental health this way. Oh, you go about doing it this way. Okay, and noticing that my story, as bad as it wasn't as bad as it can actually get. So, the more and more I shared and became more open and, and real about who I am and what I was struggling with, the better I got. And the 25-day challenge came in, I'm fast forwarding a little bit. The 25-day challenge came in actually from a good friend of mine that I found on Instagram named Cherrick Gordon. He does network marketing, and he nominated me for a 25-day push-up challenge. And so fitness has always been something that I enjoy doing myself. I've always been involved in some kind of, fitness-based thing, whether it's just working out just to feel better or whatever the case may be, playing sports and things like that with my friends. I was always involved in some kind of physical activity. So fitness is therapy for me, a form of therapy for me. So it was a no-brainer. Yeah, sure, why not? Let's do this. And once I saw the cause was actually for bringing awareness to mental health, anxiety, and depression. It was even more of a no-brainer because I was fresh out of the program. I had a better idea as to the importance of the awareness of it being, some more of, bringing it to the forefront. It was a no-brainer. So let's get to it. So I went through the initial challenge, and I really had to really sit back and start to think like, okay, the 25-day challenge is done. What next? Like what else could I do? Like, I want to keep getting this message out. I want to keep bringing awareness to this. What else could I do? Well, why not do another exercise? All right, fine. So I did a lot of, praying and meditating on it because I didn't want it to be about me. That's the biggest thing with this challenge is that, yes, there is a person that is at the helm, doing these exercises, but the main purpose is to bring more awareness to something that is, like I said, a conversation that's rarely held, with young Black males. Like, hey, how are you doing today? I just wanted to check in with you and see how you're doing. I wanted to make that the main purpose. So every day, if you follow in the challenges, I'm always wearing something green. I have on some green right now. I'm always wearing green. And the reason I'm wearing green is because green is the nationally recognized color for mental health. And I learned that while I was going through a course to become a mental health coach and advocate. So I'm always trying to bring awareness to mental health. I'm always trying to keep it at the forefront because I do not want it to be about me at the end of the day. I want people who have maybe gone through something similar, or maybe struggling with a mental illness, or battling with anxiety, or battling with depression, battling with some form of stress, to know that, okay, there are ways to go about dealing with it. There are ways to, better combat it. There are conversations that you can really have with yourself or with someone else to help you cope with it. So the more and more I did it, the more and more green I got, and the more and more green I wore. So I've done, I think it's about 4 or 5 challenges since the initial one. And the exercises, they do kick your butt. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that they are challenging, but at the end of the day, I want them to be a form of outreach for somebody who may be struggling with anxiety, or struggling with depression, or struggling with stress, or maybe so overwhelmed with what's going on in their own lives, or, they may be directly impacted with what's literally been happening in our nation with the pandemic and with everything that's been going on, to see that there is hope, that there is, a way to go about dealing with what's going on up here, that you don't have to just leave it in here. There are ways to go about expressing it in a healthy way, in a positive way, and in a motivational way. So that's a little bit about, the backstory of the 25-day challenges. A bit more about me and my battles with anxiety and depression. I've had, since the arrest of last year, I've dealt with suicidal thoughts. I've dealt with losses in my family just recently, actually this year. So there's been a lot of pain, a lot of hurts, emotionally, physically, of course, mentally, that me and my family have gone through. So I know it's hard. I've had conversations with my siblings. I've had conversations with friends, and the more and more, I get to talk about these things, the more and more it's like sort of an eye opener for other people. Like, oh man, I didn't know that you were dealing with that. I didn't know you were going through that. And those are the kind of reactions that, we need to have more so these days is, oh man, I didn't know you were going through that. Because you look at the amount of suicides, or you look at the amount of people who are actually, being diagnosed with depression, or being diagnosed with PTSD, or being diagnosed with some form of mental illness. There's always that eye opening, like, oh man, I didn't know you were going through that. Well, maybe someone didn't take the time to sit down and talk with that person, or put them into a space where they would be able to be comfortable talking about these things. And it's not like you will be judged by it. And that's the thing that I had to get over. Like, just being open with complete strangers about my own business, there was no judgment. At the end of the day, no one pointed their finger at me like, oh man, you went through that. You did that. Oh no, you're a horrible person. No, it's, oh brother, I'm sorry that you had to go through that. You want to talk about it. Those are the kind of conversations I think we need to have more so nowadays, so that, the person that's battling with suicidal thoughts, negative thoughts, depression, anxiety, like I had to go through, it'll be easier for them to be able to talk about it, so that these things can be not swept under the rug, but the stigma, can start to be, beaten down, and hopefully erased. Because this is something that African American men, this stigma of, you don't need therapy, you don't need to be talking to somebody about your own business, and that stigma needs to end. It really needs to stop.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
I get where you're coming from, but I want to take it a step forward. One, and say, as a comment, normalizing people reaching out to you
Exactly.
in the midst of your storm, not once you've gotten out of the storm, not once you've gotten in trouble because of the storm, or you're in a certain situation, but once they see the semblance of a storm, or they see warning signs, people feeling comfortable reaching out to us. And sometimes when we're in something, we're not aware of it, but we often kind of like, well, I'm good. But having that on both sides, that open communication in our relationships, where somebody can come and tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, I think something's going wrong. Because on the flip side of it, as Black men, we often don't get that opportunity to be able to say those things in a way where we're heard, or where we're actually listening.
True.
Like, we'll listen to what somebody is giving us feedback on in terms of our behavior or who we are. One of the things so I'm gonna go back a little bit, and ask you a couple questions. So the 25-day challenge, what were you testing? What was your test in that challenge?
My test ultimately, and thank you for that comment. That's true. I don't mean to laugh as a haha. I'm laughing.
I get you.
I literally was going through that. So anytime I laugh is, like, okay, I have to go back to myself, like, wow, this is exactly what's happening. This is the point.
Got you.
So the 25-day challenge, of course, initially there's the physical challenge in itself. Being able to physically do the exercises is challenging in itself. But the ultimate challenge is to continue to do something. It's not just about doing a challenge. It's about doing something that's going to challenge you to keep at it.
Right.
Meaning that the whole, there's never I have arrived, and so I am the ultimate combatant for depression and anxiety. Nothing can get me down. That is not true. Now, the thing is, I've come to grips with the fact that anxiety and depression is not something, yes, you can defeat it, but it's not something that goes away. It's not something that you can just flip a light switch and it's gone. No, This is something that you have to continuously do. This is why I've tried to get myself into a space of continuously doing something, continuously doing an exercise, continuously doing some form of movement, something that's going to take the mind, take what's going on in here, becoming more aware of what's going on up here, and doing something about it, not just sitting on it. Because the more I can speak for myself, the more and more you sit on these things and let them fester, you get to an age, you get to a point where I'm 32, you get to a point where it's going to manifest itself physically.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it manifests itself in a form of abuse, some kind of violent act, unfortunately, maybe even suicide. These kind of things manifest themselves at some point in time. So the challenge has really been, Brother Nate, something consistently. And every day I try to do the challenges live, so that it's fresh, it's not pre-recorded. I'm doing this right now and I'm showing you live what it is, and I'm trying to constantly push somebody that may be struggling with somebody to encourage them, like, hey, if you keep doing something,
right,
the pressure that goes on up here gets a little easier.
I want us to use social media for that power and not just for the attention. Because in doing these challenges, I've done similar ones, like say on Instagram, where I would just kind of paint my where I was in that moment. And it's difficult when you're dealing with that issue and not just speaking about something you've gotten through, but when you're currently in that space, being exposed in that way is very difficult. So I commend you for sharing your space with us, and not realizing how many of us may have been in that. That's what made me continue on and follow you, because it's an honesty that we don't normally get in these social media attention seeking challenges and such. And not to expose anybody, but use these platforms for the power that they have versus just the attention, the likes, and the the interest that you get from it. Before we started this live, we were talking a little bit about upbringing. And you were sharing with me some of your upbringing, and that idea of, no matter what your situation was, whether you were poor or you had both parents or not, there's something that happens that maybe we didn't catch the lesson, or we weren't given the lesson, or even the people who were in charge of us, parents, guardians, teachers, so on and so forth, did not get it, so they could not give it to us. And in return, we grow up with this missing link, and that becomes how, in many cases, the enemy gets into us, or it's connected to us. And you said something about manning up, and I gave you kind of the principle of me doing this, and wanting to support other Black men as I support myself as a Black man. One of the things that happen is many of us normally don't get the attention we need until we're so far gone in any given situation, no matter what it is, whether it's jail or, promiscuity or overeating or whatever the issue may be. We normally don't get that help until we're in that situation or too far gone in it. And normally it's not necessarily too late, but often it feels like it's too late. So often we don't try it, or we don't commit to it, or people don't care to give it to us. So that was one of the things I kind of have a commonality with you, and it hurts to know that other men are feeling that, because I used to feel like it was just me, but or it was just something I was seeing.
Brother, I appreciate the feedback, because you're so right, and thanks again for complimenting the challenge. And what I've learned in this journey, because this is a journey, brother. It is a journey. What I've learned is the word exposure, because you said exposing. What I found is exposure is more liberating in this journey. And so that's another stigma, that I don't want people to feel that, you're exposing yourself, and that, you're putting your dirty laundry out, to air dry for all the world to see.
Right.
I want that stigma to also be diminished and die, because the more I exposed who I am, the more I exposed myself to who I am and got more real with myself, the more freedom I had in sharing my story and sharing who I am, and the better I got. Honestly, brother, the more transparent I became with who I am, is the better I got. And it's looking back, hindsight on 30 plus years of not being real with myself and limiting myself is the greatest is the greatest failure, the greatest disappointment, the greatest regret that I can honestly think about in terms of my mental wellness, because there's so much that was piled on from generation.
Yeah.
The I grew up in a single mother home, so there was obviously that lack of a immediate access to a male role model.
The balance.
Yes, balance, exactly. Yes, thank you. Of a balance that I didn't have growing up.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that didn't manifest itself until my later years, until I eventually became a father myself and was in a space where now I have to be mindful of another human being's life. So that's when things sort of, flip, and it's like, oh, now I have to, be a father to a child, but I'm having to.
Before you go any further, because that's the link that I'm getting, and I want to preface this to anybody that's listening: male, female, black, white, orange, purple. When you hear men speaking like this, it is not complaining. It's not harping on an issue. It's simply being able to voice a hurt or acknowledge a pain. It's not about blaming the parents. It's not about blaming guardians or the system. Men have to have a space to be able to release. Or you'll continue to see men who are abusing others, because hurt people. You'll continue to see men who aren't able to verbalize emotion or show emotion or express emotion. So I wanted to preface this before Freddie continues to speak, because a lot of people see this as complaining. Get over it. You mentioned something else before we started talking. It was that idea of man up. And a quick story. I work for this organization that was built and created to prevent subsequent pregnancies in teens. And they had a focus on the mother, but they had a component where they would definitely bring in the father to many of these situations. But the group, and I'm gonna reach out to her, because at some point she's gonna hear me talking about her organization and get upset. But I saw all these pretty names for all the various components for the young ladies, and they had one component for the dads and the teen males, and it was called Man Up. Now all the other parts were these pretty jeweled names, Diamond and Emerald, but the one part for the guy was just simply Man Up.
One part. Wow.
That one group, that there was other programming for for the mothers, but for the dads, it was just this one group session that they had called Man Up. And I felt, as at that point, I was just an administrative assistant, and I was just like, okay, let me just keep my mouth closed and push this paper that I'm in charge of. But it was hurting me, because I saw a lift up on this side, and an opposite and direct action to push down on this side, and trying to, in their way, build him up. I got to sit you down. But yet we were just holding up these young ladies who were part of the act of getting pregnant. But that was the other component, just the man up process. But I wanted to preface the conversation before we got any further, so people did not look at it as complaining or being in your feelings.
Right, not at all. And thanks again, Nate, for bringing that up. And yes, I'm not bashing my parents for from my upbringing, because I'm still here. I've never had need for clothes, food, and or shelter. So I am not complaining at all about the upbringing. I'm just making a point of what balance I didn't have holistically as a young man growing up. So that immediate access to a father figure was not there, unfortunately. But as I was saying earlier about the manifestation of what's going on in here comes out eventually is that now that I'm in a space where I'm a father now, I have to be mindful of another life that I'm responsible for. And of course, as a man, you always want what's best for your child. And I know what I will want from my child, my son, is that him not to have to grow up without his father, you know. So the thing is, again, that being open and being mindful of this lack that I had to go through, I do not want him to have to go through, because I've already seen in my life where the pitfalls have come, where the struggles have come, where the shortcomings have been. And the constant, man up, kind of conversations, and the constant get over it kind of conversations, and the you're not allowed to emote, you're not allowed to feel, you're not allowed to, do this or do that. You're a man. You have to be Superman. You have to, do this. You got to provide. You got to take care of, and you have to, maintain a household. That's it. With no real emphasis on, okay, you have a physical household and a family that you're building up, but what about the man? What about what builds up the man? And it's not just the physical building up of the man. It's like, what are you building up in the man that's going to help their mental, that's going to help their spiritual, that's going to help their emotional? These are things, entities of the holistic man that are constantly overlooked. The physical is like the default and the end all be all a lot of the times with men. And unfortunately, the young men that grow up without that holistic balance are the ones that are going to, I hate to say fall by the wayside for lack of a better word, but those are the ones that get incarcerated. Those are the ones that, have those, the substance abuse or whatever case may be, where those are outlets that they use to say that it's an outcry. It's like, hey, pay attention. This is what you've missed for all these years. And this is my way of dealing with what's going on in here, what's going on in here. And if society doesn't get to a place where we don't ignore the warning signs or the flags that shoot up, and the voices that are screaming out like, hey, I need help, then this is just a revolving door, unfortunately. And this is a cycle and a pattern that's going to constantly rear its ugly head. And I'm so glad that, unfortunately, what happened that got me to this point happened, but at the same time, it helped me to, see exactly who I am, see the struggles and the weaknesses that I have as a man, of course, mentally and emotionally, and begin to really address those things so that holistically I can be better for myself, for my child, and for all those around me that may need a voice to speak out for them, or someone that can help them in their struggle as well. So that whole stigma, and it's not complaining about my upbringing. The man up piece, sorry. The whole man up thing is, and again, I laugh not at it, but I'm laughing because of what I've gone through. And I've seen it firsthand. I've heard it firsthand. And you don't really man up until you take care of this. Well, you take care of this spiritually. That's when you really man up, because the physical just comes in line, and it's all connected. It's all connected, man.
Hello?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, so at what point did you realize?
Oh,
Can you? I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me now?
I got you loud and clear.
Okay, so at what point did this?
Oh, lost connection. Uh-oh.
Hello?
I got you.
Technology is crazy in this
Oh man,
moment.
the devil is busy.
But at what point did you realize? Was it in your childhood, or was it after, you know, as an adult and things started happening differently? When did you realize that there was an issue or a problem?
Definitely as an adult. Definitely as an adult. And I apologize if I didn't hear you.
No, I
Maybe.
think it's a technical issue going on, but we will rock with it.
Okay. Yes, it was definitely upon my later years. Unfortunately, like I said, going through the program, I learned so much about myself,
Mm-hmm.
and about just the what the lack of that balance ultimately did for me as a young African American male. And growing up, I didn't even notice it. I didn't even honestly, I paid little to no attention to it. Again, society is society does a lot in terms of, you know, forcing distraction or forcing some kind of outlet to, excuse me, I'm sorry, get over these things that, affect us on a deep level, on a deeper
Right.
level. So there was, video games, there was, anything you can think of that would distract you from what's really going on, to try to, to sort of keep you busy at life and not really living. So
Yeah.
it wasn't until, unfortunately, I got later on in life that I realized, oh man, I've just been living and not,
Mm-hmm.
getting in touch with who I am internally and why I've been dealing with these things and why it's manifested itself in the way that it did. So it wasn't until my later years,
In
unfortunately.
terms of that toxic masculinity, that phrase that we
Mhm.
hear so much about now,
Mhm.
how did that play a part? And I don't know how to really, because it's just another phrase that we're overusing right now, but
Yeah.
it says a lot about where a lot of us are, because a lot of
Mhm.
us wear that mask of
Mhm.
trying to be a real man. You see a lot of in a lot of comments on social media and such about a real man. And the idea of, if you don't meet these criteria bullet points, then
Mhm.
you aren't a real man. you know um how have you restructured your idea of what it is to be a real, quote unquote, real man?
That's an excellent question, brother Nate. I'm actually thinking I'm still trying to get to
Mm-hmm.
that that point, because one of the things that I've really started to make sort of habit is visualization,
Right.
is seeing myself as a better version of myself. So I think, at least to start, to get to that point of being, being a man, being a better man, is to, come to grips with who you are as a man, holistically, strengths, weaknesses, flaws, all that stuff, because all of that encompasses who you are as
Mm-hmm.
a man. So I think that's at least a good launch pad to begin to, okay, I know that I have no problems with this, but I know I struggle with this. Okay, so let me put it at the forefront so that I can work on this and I can use
Mm-hmm.
my strengths, to complement, to buffer those weaknesses so that I can build those weaknesses up. So I think that's a good way to launch yourself to work on being a better man. And unfortunately, at least for me, I found that it was a good way to, like, break down before I could build up. If you get my drift, like, had to break down myself. I was already being broken down when
Mm-hmm.
when I talked more and more about myself. Yeah, crying came, shortness of breath, not really being able to speak clearly came because of,
Yeah.
really digging deep, and
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I had that going on. I didn't realize that. Oh my God. So there was a lot of breaking down that had to happen before
Right.
I start building myself up. So I think, in terms of, being a real man, you got to be willing to be broken. You got to be
Mm-hmm.
willing to be broken. Um, if it's not you doing it, society's going to do it, or somebody else is going to do it for you.
And
But
just speaking to the watching public, not even on this platform, but just in general, a
mm,
man is a man regardless of their flaws, their issues, their
Yeah.
shortcomings. And speaking to men, you are a man despite your flaws, your shortcomings,
Exactly.
your discrepancies, your imbalance, your mental capacity or lack thereof. And I don't want to give people this with cotton candy intentions, but it really, I think the the world wants black men to stand up and be better and do better in general, not being specific to any one person, but that requires for you to then one go back and start raising our young men, not in the image of a man you want, but in the image of a man. So that means if you are a single parent, bringing in some stable-minded individuals that can show your child array of what it is to be a young black man, and then on the other side, supporting black men in that space of where we currently are. Because I'm 37, so a lot of the stuff that you're facing at 33, it was around the time of 30 when I started to recognize the patterns and the inconsistencies and kind of the gaps in life lessons that I had not obtained or I wasn't focused on. So I what you're saying, it really did touch me, because at 37, I thought I would have all the answers at this point. I thought I would have or at least most of the answers. And because things aren't set up in terms of our interpersonal relationships, we still are going through some of the same struggles from 33 to 37. And it's not, I still mentally feel like I'm in that space of 30 to 34-ish when you're still going through some of the revelations in life. And kind of a lot of us got that at 17 or so, around that time, but around 30, it's not a aha moment, but it's like, okay, damn, I was really missing out on some really valuable things, but now it's in your lap to deal with that. So how do you then move forward and learn those lessons at 33, 34, 37, 50, 60? Because I have uncles that are in their late 40s, 50s, who are addressing, and not even addressing, but still living with that blinder on as we speak. What are some of so in terms of you being a dad, did you find yourself over dadding or over protecting or over teaching? How old is your child, by the way, if you don't mind?
My son, he just turned. Yeah, I don't mind. My son just turned 2.
Okay.
Just past Saturday.
Okay.
And so yeah, I mean, when I have him with me, I try to be like a hawk. Try to be like a hawk, in terms of what he's doing and all that. But you can't 100% of the time. You cannot, because one, he's a boy.
Right.
So he's ripping and running, and he's all over the place. I'm not out of shape by any means, but I'm not going to be chasing a one.
You're not on 2-year-old level right now.
All day. No. But in terms of raising him, and just to be real frank, just to really be honest with you, brother, it's scary as hell to me. And I'm gonna tell you why it's scary as hell to me. Mental health and its awareness, being aware of it, is one thing. But when I look at what society lacks as a whole in terms of what our children are exposed to, whether it be the public school system, the technology, because technology age is like really taking over what our children are exposed to on a daily basis. This is daily basis. Whether you're with the child or not, this is daily exposure. Is scary to me, because I know this place that I'm in, mental health and being more aware of it, that's great. And I can really hammer that home to him. There's so much that I'm still having to learn myself in terms of race, in terms of the discrimination, and all those kind of things that he's going to have to deal with, whether I give it to him whether a complete stranger that he may walk past teaches him, or whether the school system teaches it to him. It's going to happen. And
Yeah.
my stand on that is that you brought up a very great point. Not the man that you want to be, but a man, period.
Yeah.
And I don't want to impose so much of me on him because I don't want him to have the same pitfalls that his father Frederick had to deal with.
But what and see, I don't have children, I have nieces, but I teach. So I'm around a lot of young children a lot. And these principles are the same for young ladies by the way as well. But it's just we have learned how to separate and compartmentalize life lessons. But the one thing that happened, and I think a lot of people who are in this space of evolving, we learn how to forgive our parents, because if we are in this space and not, my instinct when a child is in a classroom not doing what they're supposed to be doing is to yell.
Yeah.
And I recall, my mother was a yeller, and that's why I don't like yelling. But when it came to me to go to that place, I had to then look at, wow, so she just didn't know. It was an instinct. So it didn't really, she wasn't doing it to me to be doing it to me, but it was an instinct. So one of the things that I learned in being a teacher and being around children is I learned how to give parents a little bit more forgiveness, and just leeway, because this doesn't come with a handbook. I don't care how many books are written on how to raise children. It does not speak to the day-to-day life and living or being around children.
Yeah.
So when I ask you the question in terms of how you're parenting now, are you mindful of that toxic masculinity that can be passed down, or those teaching from a fearful place versus a life learned lesson? Are those things part of your everyday thoughts, or when you are raising your son, or as you're raising your son?
Oh yeah, yes sir. And thanks again for the feedback. But yes sir, that's every day that I look at him, or I think about where he is as a young boy. It takes my mind on so many trips, because I know what I'm good at, as far as what I know and what I could just teach him like easily enough. But the things that are really hard, the talks, quote unquote, that parents would have to have with their children, those are the things that are really scary, because again, it's not whether I teach it or not, it's something that he's going to have to deal with at some point in his life. And it is my job, it is my responsibility as his father to at least expose him. It's that exposure, expose him to it, so that when he does have to deal with it, he knows what it is.
Yeah. Is that are you worried at all that in you being so mindful of your own upbringing and your life that you'll miss something? Do parents have that fear?
Oh yes.
Okay.
I believe so. And I think that's what causes so many parents to stress. And again, I'm not laughing at it. I'm smiling, because I know for a fact that I stress about it.
Yeah.
So the mental health awareness thing, I have to be aware of when I'm stressing myself out. And I think it's fair to say that almost, any parent would stress over that. And you can't dot every I or cross every T. You just can't. No matter how however you want to cut the cake, whether you have the traditional mother father household, single mother household, single father household, or guardian household,
right?
Every I will not be dotted, every T will not be crossed. But that's not to discourage anybody.
Yeah.
In that vein, is to say that children are going to be children regardless of whether you're right on their back every hour, every day, making sure that they're playing with the right toys, that they're reading the right things, or whatever it may be. it just doesn't work like that, you know. But at the same time, it's a matter of, okay, you have this time with them now. They ask you a
Yeah.
question. Here's your teaching moment.
I'm experiencing that in a indirect way now because I have 4 nieces,
Mm,
and 2 of them are on social media now. Just on Instagram are they allowed to be on, and one is about to graduate from high school,
mm,
and I see the tight hold that
mm,
my sister has on them, and I see how that compares to my mom, and I see that same tight hold that my mom had on. So I'm
mm,
fearful that they won't have the instincts or the knowledge to be in the world. But at the same time, I'm monitoring their pages and making sure the music doesn't have profanity or suggestive
mm.
lyrics. And my oldest niece, I'm making sure you may be a senior in high school, but I don't want you wearing that on. Like, just
Yeah.
thinking about those things
Mhm.
terrifies me because
Oh yeah.
I know my sister's crazy, and I know, like, if something was to happen, that's it for that person who does it. But I am in terms of us getting on back on the topic of men and just our well-being. I had posted something on social media, and of course my phone being retarded right now, but I posted something on social media, and it dealt with men being able to say when they were hurt.
Mm,
And the exact message was, dear men, sometimes all we have to say is that hurt my feelings. And the
mm.
caption that was over top of it, it says, hey, black men, is this difficult for you to do? Uh,
Yeah.
to express how we are, because many times we're in a space where we're not allowed to be that because that's not what real men do, quote unquote,
Mhm.
or it's not how real men behave, or we're all our emotions. And we've all been in that situation where we've seen a mom or a parent, period, kind of squash a young child's cry
Mm,
or
mm,
agitation in that moment, and
mhm.
tell them shut up. And we've all seen that happen at least once in life, and it's
Sure.
hurtful. But
Mhm.
then you see that same child, imagine that same child 20, 30 years older,
Mm,
in an argument with somebody, and
mm,
that person is not allowing that person to be who they are. And it's not always the outside person, it's sometimes you, because you're in your mind auto correcting your behavior, so you're seen as a man, as you're seen
mm,
as a real man.
mm.
But can you speak on that for a moment?
Yes, yeah, yes. And again, I appreciate the feedback, and I'm loving this talk. But yes, it that is hard. You know, to say for me to say that hurt my feelings. I
Are you there yet? Are you there yet?
I'm laughing because I'm not all the way there yet. I will say that I have more candid and more open conversations with those who are important in my life, significant
Mhm.
other, family, friends, those kind of things. My conversations have definitely changed in terms of how I speak directly to them about anything. Um,
Right.
but even more so with directed to mental health and, you know, a man being more open with himself, it's becoming easier for me to basically say that there has to be a different way of doing this so that this
Mhm.
doesn't affect me this way. And
Okay.
so conversations have changed, but in terms of saying that outright, that is very difficult. I will admit to say that it is very difficult. And that's one of the lessons that, you know, I learned going through the counseling program, that, you know, as a man, you know, society has this viewpoint
Mhm.
one way, or, you know, there's gender roles of what a man is supposed to do in a relationship as opposed to what a woman is supposed to do in a relationship. So the
Right.
women are supposed to feel and emote and all that stuff, and the men are supposed to carry and lead and direct and all that. But there's no real space in that relationship for two people to emote
Right,
or
because we're always taught that, and even in female male friendships or family dynamics, the man is always supposed to just suck it up and deal with it, and we're always wrong and we're stupid. So just imagine going out into the world, and I'm speaking to a lot of women right now. Imagine going out into the world, not only hearing that also, but being raised under that same principle. We're stupid, we're the dumber race, we are, you know, we're lazy often, we don't communicate well, we're always wrong, happy, you know, happy wife, happy life, like those types of pleasing mechanisms. And I'm not saying anything is nothing wrong with doing what you're supposed to do as a man, but when the directives are skewed against you, it makes it hard to grow in that or live in that or want to maintain that.
I agree. And that's and you see a lot of the fallout with these relationships, unfortunately, has their root in one of those examples, in one of those very sad examples. And so now the question is, okay, well, why have these gender roles if it's something that's going to constantly tear down a happy structure? Whether, you know, the relationship is at a good point, not so good point, bad spot. God forbid a child is raised in, you know, one of the negative examples. So what has to be done to sort of get that to shift in a more positive vein? And you already mentioned it, you know, the man being more upfront and more willing to say that, you know what, that hit me like this, it affected me like that. I'm not feeling that because it made me feel like this. This is a trigger for me. That's another big thing. The triggers, letting somebody know that this is a trigger for me, that this affects me mentally. So maybe, you know, we shouldn't, you know, do that, or maybe we shouldn't talk about that, or maybe we should talk about it in a different way because it triggers me. I believe that's a healthy way of dealing with it, so that both parties know what's going on. Both parties know how each individual feels about what's being addressed, and so that there is a way to go about dealing with it in a more positive way. So
to ask a question on that, what responsibility does the party who is triggered have in that situation? Because I can't keep avoiding on the other side of the argument. I'm the person, I'm not going to keep avoiding saying what I have to say because you are triggered, because that's something you have to fix, because maybe that's a point of contention for me. Maybe that's an issue for me, and I can't bring it up because you are triggered by that statement or that emotion or that, you know, conflict. But what responsibility does the person who has the trigger have in those situations?
I'm glad you asked that. Really good question. And I was going to eventually get to that. Yes, it does become responsibility for that person that is triggered to deal with that trigger. And again, this is a journey. So this is something that that person who has that trigger is going to constantly have to deal with until it becomes easier, you know, to be able to confront it. So yes, it does fall on that person to deal with that trigger. So I'll give you a case in point. I have really bad OCD at times. So I like to have things situated in a certain way at all times. I don't lose my mind. So
had that roommate before. How you doing, Carl?
Yeah. If I know I'm coming into a place, say I'm going to my sister's place, and it's not as clean as I know it should be or could be, and she has 4 children, so I give her the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, I go to her place and I notice that, you know, something's a little out of place and it's not really as clean as it should be. That used to really set me off. I'm not gonna lie, that would really set me off. But I had to, and it would set me off in a way that it would completely throw me out of whack. You know, we could be there for something completely different. We could be there to enjoy each other's company. You know, we could be there for a family dinner and, you know, be having a good, healthy family conversation. But oh shoot, the trash is still sitting and it hasn't been taken out. And that's where my focus is being. for the majority of the time, then that's
Oh no, Freddie, you had it bad.
yes, sir. So that is something that I have to deal with. And so one
Yeah.
thing that I did, one of the last times I was over at her place was I mentioned it like, hey, such and such, do you mind if we get this trash out, or do you need help with this trash? And I wouldn't flat out say, oh, this is a trigger for me. We need to get rid of this trash now.
I'm
No.
telling you, if you had my sister take the damn trash out, that's what she would have said.
And see that it goes, that's that kind of dialogue is so so automatic, it's so default, but that can have a negative impact on that person that has that, that's on a written, and like, whoa, okay, my bad, I didn't know it was that serious. So I basically was like, okay, do you need help with this? Do you need help with this? Again, she has 4 children, so she's doing multiple things at one time. Do you need help with this? Because 1, I want this out of face because it's triggering me. But 2, I just want to be able to help out.
Oh, Freddie, we're gonna have to have a couple more conversations.
It's real. This is
it's real.
In real time. And something as small as that can trigger something up in here. And you wouldn't know it because you can't see inside your mind.
But where did that come from?
Actually, I used to be a janitor. So I worked as a janitor for about 4 or 5 years. So that's where it comes from. That's where it really comes from.
Okay.
So,
but it's deeper than it has to be deeper than that. But we're gonna start with being a janitor. We're gonna start with.
I mean, to for it to be deeper than that, as a janitor, I've had to walk into some of the messiest of the messies.
I can imagine.
Have to come out on the other end, looking back like, damn, that's a clean bathroom. Or damn,
did you grow up in one of those 6 a.m. Saturday let's clean up homes?
Okay. But when I went a church I used to go to.
That's my trigger, by the way. That's my
really.
I cannot clean it all the time because
wow,
mom would get up, music playing, all the windows open.
Wow,
let's clean.
Wow, well, here we go. This that real talk. It's not just words. It's real.
You can't be honest, so we being honest.
Yes, sir. But I will say, a church I used to go to, we did have a community cleanup aspect.
Yeah.
So there were some points in the month, like a Saturday, early Saturday morning, where we would, come out and get together and clean. So it did sort of have its roots in that. Yeah. And it did help me with my, in my janitor field that, okay, I can do this because, I used to do this. So this is nothing. But as far as my household, no, we didn't have that. Oh, no. We had chores. Everyone had their own assigned chores. But as far as like that early morning, get up and get the cleaning.
But this, I said that one because it just speaks to, especially with siblings, we normally see if there was a way of doing things, normally siblings are on the polar opposites. Like I am not the neat sibling, but in terms of like my living space, I am like a bit OCD because like at moments I'm OCD. Moments I force myself to not do it, but then there are other moments where I be like, I gotta get this because this piece of thing on the floor is driving me crazy. But I want to go back a little bit. During your 25-day challenge, which day or which challenge or number was the most challenging? Was there a moment where you was like, you know what? If I just erase all the other posts, they don't know that I'm doing this, and I can just stop. I'm saying it because that has happened to me.
Wow, really?
I'm gonna give you the link to my Instagram where I started this. It was supposed to be 365-day challenge, and it facing myself, or not necessarily myself, but some of the things that I've gone through. It got tough. So for you, at what point did it get tough in this specific challenge?
Wow. Okay. Well, I commend you for that. That's a big. That's big thing because I had to, and I'm gonna get to the question, but I just want to get this little real quick. Is that I've done about 4 or 5 of them, and at the end of every one, I have to take 2 days. I have to.
Yeah.
I have to. I have to run so that I can recharge, woosah, breathe,
Right.
meditate, and pray exactly where the next one is going to go, what the next one should be, and how I should, talk about it. Like the message has to change, not the overall message, but how I
reflection.
Yes, exactly. So I have to take time to wind down. But in terms of the most challenging one was definitely the one I just did, legs. Legs have been my Achilles heel in terms of fitness. So physically.
So real quick, before you go any further, I'm sorry, but can you tell people how you connected mental health to exercise? Because I don't think we explained that, so they don't not know what we're talking about.
Yes, sir. I'm glad you asked me that. Physical movement has been shown and proven to not only impact but improve your mental well-being.
So for 25 days.
It doesn't have to just be 25 days.
No, I'm saying for this challenge, though. For this challenge you did. So for 25 days, you did some type of exercise to help alleviate the anxiety or stress.
I'm going to give you a little, okay, so I'm going to give you behind the scenes. So let's say I do one of my favorite exercises, which is push-ups.
Okay.
That's a no-brainer. I don't even have to think about doing a push-up. I can just do a push-up. But before I get into that space of doing a push-up, I always do this with any body part. Okay, this is going to impact this body part, and I know it's going to help strengthen this body part. So while I'm doing this exercise, how am I going to bring it back to the forefront of this?
Your intention.
Yes, the intention, exactly. And that's I'm glad you said that word, because that is that's it. It's intentional.
Right.
Doing this movement. I'm doing this rep. I'm glad you said that. That's beautiful.
Okay, I was paying attention to your challenge, so I was there with you. I wasn't doing the movements, but I was there with you. Next time.
But that's just how powerful it is. The intention. While I'm doing this rep, while I'm doing this movement, how am I feeling?
Yeah.
After I do this movement, after I do this rep, after I do these sets, how am I feeling?
Okay.
So those are the questions that I ask myself with each challenge, with each day, with each movement. How am I feeling before, during, and after? You had to be intentional. Okay. Yes, there have been hard days where I get up and I'm like, oh, yo, I can't do this. Like the legs, when I say the legs was the most physically challenging, coming to the end of it, my back was giving me problems. Okay. So I had to stop. I had to take a couple of days and make sure my back was fine. So I didn't, of course I wouldn't injure myself. So if I injure myself, I can't do anything. So I had to make sure my back was fine before I continued. And so I had to be intentional with my recovery. Everything has to have intention behind it.
Right.
So that you're always being mindful of what's going on in here. You don't want to just, automatically do it because you can do it. Yes, you can do it, but why are you doing it?
Yeah, in these challenges, because that's the one that I did, that was the intention got blurred. So because there wasn't a focus on what my intention was, my goal, my end result, the process, the journey, because those things became about just making sure I did it by a certain time every day, and not what my intention was. It got difficult because what happened was the reality of the things that I was talking about began to manifest itself in other people, how they would talk to me. Because they saw it, anytime you post something on social media, people automatically assess it as, oh, you're going through something. So you'll get are you okay? You good? You fine? And that's helpful.
Yeah, that's fine.
It became how people related to me. So they were following it, and I realized people were following it. without, of course, liking it, so I could gauge how many people were. But it is difficult. It became difficult, and the reason I said intention because I understand how important your intention is to finishing.
Yes, sir.
But was there a moment where you said the leg part, the leg day? Why was that difficult for you?
It was difficult, and this is outside, of course, of the challenge because it was difficult because of what was actually going on in my own personal life. So, we unfortunately, my family has had several relatives pass away.
Okay.
Just this past summer, actually. So it's been really difficult to maintain everything holistically. Be honest with you, one because this journey is new; it's still fresh.
Yeah.
Like we just started this. You might as well say towards the, I would say, like fresh after the pandemic happened. Because that's when I was literally forced to sit and be stuck in but behind these in this household.
Right.
Able to go out and work like I used to. I wasn't able to go out and do things that I was so accustomed to doing because of lockdown. And I was really forced to face myself, come to terms with myself, come more to terms with this. And it was hard, brother. It was hard. And the leg challenge was the hardest because of that battle that's continuously happening. In terms of the loss, and even more so with having my son with me, not really having my son as often as I would like to have. Is it hurts this and it hurts this, hurts the heart, and hurts because that's a piece of myself that I'm not with as much as I would like. So the physical, my back eventually started to hurt. My heart was hurting because of the losses and because, not really being able to see my son as much as I wanted to. My mind, because as I'm going through these things, I have 2 older sisters. So we check in a lot more than we have in our entire lives, brother. It's beautiful. Like, not to say that the loss helped, it did, but the mental health aspect helped as well. The fact that it's literally just us, our father, and I believe our uncle and some other extended family relatives that we have left. Because we're all, immediately I have them 2 and they have me. That's it immediately. So it was hard. It was really hard, but we were able to keep more in contact. And so we learned more about each other than we probably ever had in our whole lives.
That's beautiful. I know a lot of people haven't taken that time.
And we're all in our 30s. So you do the math. You're talking years upon years of not really. I mean, yeah, we know I know I have 2 older sisters. They know they have a younger brother. But at the real core of it, I have 2 older sisters that have been impacted by these things this way. And I have been impacted by these same things this way. So my back, the family dynamic, of course, trying to come up with ways that I'm going to be able to have income, be able to get myself on a steady regimen of, having income coming in, starting this business and things like that. All these are new. All these are new to me. So my mind is going through it. My heart is going through it. And my brother, when I say my back was going through it.
And the crazy thing, it may not be your back. It's just all those things showing up in a physical manifestation in your body. Because even the point of grief has been different during this pandemic because only a limited amount of people can come. And then we're watching this stuff now. All these funeral homes and churches have these live stream funerals. That's a horrible feeling.
That is different. That hit different.
Of grief, during the week, especially with Black people, that week of a funeral is a family reunion for many of us. That's the
Yeah.
only time that many of us get to see each other. So again, a lot of people haven't gotten that, and we're still having to deal with the grief without the things that helped us through the grief. And even if those things were a little toxic, we should not only get together that week of a family reunion. I mean, a funeral, and that's how I see it, as a family reunion. But yeah, those things are manifesting in your back.
Yeah.
And that may be your part of the stress part of your body, where stress reveals itself the most.
Yeah. You know what? I'll be I agree with that. I love that. That was a beautiful observation. And I agree with the whole, unfortunately, these funerals turn into a sort of family reunion of sorts. But that's if you're even lucky to have, those kind of things, especially now. My grandfather, he passed just this past spring, and we had to watch his funeral procession.
That was in the very beginning. Yeah.
Watch it. I couldn't even be there when my grandmother passed. I was there physically. I was able to see her at the wake, and I was able to see her. But my grandfather, I had to watch via a camera.
Yeah.
Passing. My mother, unfortunately, just passed this summer. She didn't want a funeral, so she wanted cremation. But I was able to physically see her, and that did help with the grieving process. That did help. Yeah, it did help. It really did. And that's another big thing, is that the grief, how that really affects your mental health, is something that has to be procedural. It has to have. You have to.
Well, there's stages of grief. There's an actual stage of grief. Acceptance to, denial. There's a whole step of it.
Yeah. What's it, the five stages of grief or something like that?
Yeah.
Something else that I've learned in this journey is the fact that this whole healing thing, anxiety and depression and all that, it's cyclical. It's not like you're ever going to arrive. Like, okay, just stop is here, get off. No, that bad boy never runs out of gas. It never runs out of fuel. It's brother. So it's that, along with grief, you had to be able to do things differently. So what did I do? A lot of things that I do, again, is intentional. So I do a lot more writing. I journal. Probably journal this month more than I have in my entire life. So I'm journaling more. I'm learning how to meditate, praying more. And I'm trying to do more things that are going to limit the battles up here. So limit the battles up here, and you actually bring them to the forefront. So you're able to identify what's going on. You'll be able to cope with these things differently.
So just a real quick. So I'm paying attention to the time. So if any moment you gotta move on, just let me know.
Okay. Yeah. I'm seeing it too. But no, these kind of conversations, I'm in them.
It is like I'm getting a warm feeling, like a hot feeling over me right now, because it really it's conversation that I've avoided having for so long. And then you kind of do right. You kind of let it out in doses and see if people can handle it, and then you kind of retreat because you see some people aren't dealing with it the same way you are. This whole war that has been created by whomever that pits Black men and Black women against each other, it's damaging us, because I am saying I'm having these issues and you're saying you're having these issues, and we're now in a deep feminist movement, but we're also in a Black Lives Matter movement and the LGBTQ community movement, and a racial tension kind of a movement right now. But it is very important for people to acknowledge that you're going through something. And this is, these are the people that we seek out when we need a shoulder or a mentor or a listening ear. I know everybody is going through something, because some of my relationships have been phone conversations that go on for hours at night at some time or throughout the day, where we're just venting to each other. And I start realizing those relationships. And sometimes you have to get out of that cycle, because then your griping becomes just about that phone call. And then both of you like, I don't feel like answering that call right now. So it becomes whether people want to deal with you or not, or tolerate what you're going through. For you, where do you see yourself moving towards, or do you see yourself ever getting to a space of I've gotten past a lot of the stuff from childhood up into now, and now I can move in and actually live in this moment? Or are you trying to balance that right now?
That's a beautiful question. And you talked about getting that warm feeling. My body has been shaking on and off. No joke, my body has been shaking on and off. And that's just the nerves. My body, I notice with my body when I'm sharing things about myself, my body like has these like jitters or like shakes where it's like, oh no, that's too much, bro. Pull back. I noticed that when I was going through the program, and I just noticed that again. But again, that exposure, that being open, it brings with it, man, a level of comfort that's just unexplainable. But yeah, to get into what you asked, I don't want to separate younger Fred from older Fred. And when I say that, understanding that yes, there was childhood imbalance in terms of the father not there as much as I would have wanted, and that's in his own that's his own trauma. There wasn't any abuse, there wasn't any child abuse or neglect in my household, but at the same time there was a separation. The separation of the children from the father. Whatever may have transpired between my mother and my father for that to happen is irrelevant. The fact is it happened. And for a majority of my life, that's what I knew. I knew single mother parenting. That's what my exposure was. But I don't want to separate young Fred from older Fred, because young Fred, yes, there was a lot of, challenges, pitfalls and all of that. But younger Fred was still able to thrive and live.
Right.
And was able to grow up and mature into older Fred. Now, there was some pitfalls and all that, but those are things that I can look back on hindsight now and go, okay, I don't want someone else to, I'm sorry, my cat. I don't want someone else to go to that, specifically my child.
Right.
If I know that this is what I went through and I know how to better deal with it, this is something that I can then, teach and or let him be aware of, so that he would have he'll have a head start.
Okay.
He'll have a better start on his growth than I did.
How much of your story are you willing to share with your son as you are in this process of raising him? Because often that's the part that's omitted. Normally parents do better at raising, but still some of the truths that are supposed to be lessons for that child are omitted because of embarrassment, or the parent really hasn't dealt with those issues. So how honest are you about some of the things that you are going through? I know at 2 you can only be but so honest at this point, but in terms of your plan and raising him, how honest are you willing to be in that moment or in this moment?
That's a great question, brother. That really hits at home right here really hard, because I know out of my mouth I said, that I would want to teach him truth, truth about anything that he would have a question about. But I know that there are going to come those really hard conversations. And to be honest with you, I don't want to I'm not trying to avoid the question, but it's just I would want to be able to articulate in the best way the kind of lessons that would not hinder his growth, but propel it. So if there's anything that I know I can dig in on my past that I know could be a launch pad for him to like really take off and to really, grow up and be a bit more wise about, what to be wary of and, how to go about maneuvering life, then that's what I'm going to do.
And I'm speaking as a person who does not have a child of its own, but I hear what you're saying, but I think that's where parents overthink things,
yeah,
because
in the
the
stress.
best way of saying things is to be as honest and transparent as you can be,
Yeah.
because I think that's what happens to a lot of parents, and they avoid giving the lesson. So your child grows up thinking that the bills magically get paid, that the food is magically in the refrigerator, or the lights just, you snap your fingers and the lights come on. Those, and I'm being facetious right now, but there are bigger issues than that. But in terms of sex or sexuality or all those things that we have, like in this 30 generation, we know some of the pitfalls that we had. We are at the cusp of when the internet started. All of us can tell you when the internet started in our generation, and we were exposed to things that were probably too much for us, between cable and the internet and phones and all those things being so accessible to you, where we could remember a time where you had to have a quarter to be able to and find a payphone. It wasn't a thing of having, or returning a code from a pager. So now children have access to information before, somebody can talk to them about it. And I think a lot of just the parents, the education system, community in general, they underestimate the intelligence of a child, because a child understands what they're seeing. They just don't have the experience to be able to filter it or deal with it or address it. And we know many of us were not on a level where we could go to our parents and say, where do babies come from? Or, you just know, especially with Black men, like, how do you ask questions like that? Like, I always had the questions, but how do I ask, again, like my single mom, how do I ask her those questions? And not having a dad to necessarily go to, how do you ask questions about your body changing, or, you're noticing things growing, or things, that you didn't have a couple weeks ago, or, or just experiences in life and in your interactions with people. How do you deal with, those types of questions? And I'd hate always asking parents when I interview them, because that's a lot. Sometimes parents are dealing with, I just got to get food on the table. I got to make sure they have, this and that. And then all the other stuff gets put on the back burner, and it becomes situational.
Yeah, unfortunately. And, I definitely agree with, I definitely see, where someone would come from, a parent would come from in that regards, because it's, I know growing up, my mom was always working. She had time with us, yes, but we moved several times. I can remember, I believe we moved from Baltimore to Philadelphia when I was real young. I had to been, I would say 5.
Okay.
And she was always, working. But like I said, we never had need for food, shelter, anything like that. We were fine. But I know for us, my sisters helped raise me. And, of course, we have friends and things like that. And, we were never too far from family.
Right.
But at the same time, I can remember that my mom was, working a lot. But like I said, we had all our basic needs taken care of. So I can see why, someone, a parent would say, oh, I just, make sure that they have food, clothes, and, shelter and all that. Those are essential, yes. But my stance is, okay, I know that I'm able to do this to be able to provide for him, but what I want to be able to do to complement that, it's not enough to, just have a roof over his head and, be able to have food, that he can eat, and clothes on his back and things like that. What could I be doing to complement that? How can I, this him being, him developing and growing up, how can I make that more feasible? How can I, help him along with his growth and his development that I might not have got?
You know, that's interesting. I just watched an episode of Iyanla Fix My Life, like I love her. And she said out loud, she said, I was a great parent. I paid the bills. I make sure there were food on the table, clothes on your back, that you had your necessities in life. She said, but I was a horrible mom because I didn't give the time or the nurturing that was necessary. And I know in a day like this where we're expecting for parents to do it all, or we have a lot of parents that are actually catching up to where we are in life. So they're able to do things that they didn't have opportunities to do when they were children or first raising their children. So it's kind of hard now for parents to focus on just the nurturing without, something else falling short.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. And to piggyback on that, technology does a lot in terms of filling that void, unfortunately, filling that gap, because like you said, things are so readily accessible nowadays. It's like, do you even really need to have the birds and bees talk with a child when they can just Google, where, the children, how are children made, things like that. So
I would say yes to people listening. Yes, please have the conversation because they may know how to have sex.
Yes, have it.
They may know how to have sex, what sex is, but the conversation about the dangers of laying down with the wrong person is has triple rippling effects in your life. So yes, have the conversation.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't have it, but I'm just bringing up how easy this information is fed to young children. And it's not just the birds and bees talk. It's any general information that a child could be curious of. It's like that.
It's a Google click away.
A Google click away. Absolutely. So that distinction of parenthood and mother or fatherhood is very distinct. And it's not to put any parent on blast. You do what you got to do to make sure the child is taken care of. At the end of the day, you want the child to be taken care of. That's any parent's.
Now you were saying you were saying you were having more conversations, say, with your siblings and with others more so than you ever had before. Were these the type of conversations you were having, or were you still avoiding the inevitable kind of?
I'm sorry. I'll let you finish your question.
No, go ahead. That was it.
Oh, okay. Well, yes. Eventually, these conversations come up because I'm 32, and so I've watched them with their children.
Okay.
My oldest sister's oldest child is 16, and the youngest between both of my sisters is 5.
Okay.
So I've had the privilege of watching them raise their children, and I've watched them go through the hurdles and the bumps and the bruises and some of the pitfalls that come with parenting without that holistic balance.
Okay.
Again, it wasn't just me being without the father; it was them being without the father for majority of their life. So I'm not isolating, me from my siblings in that regards, in that. But of course, to get the nitty-gritty from them, I would have to ask them. But in terms of the conversation, I've watched them raise their children. And so now that I'm a parent myself, things are scarier for me, because it's not so much of, oh yeah, I'm just watching my nephew and my nieces. And, at the end of the day, I know that mommy's going to come and pick them up and I won't have to see them.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, shoot.
This is your legal responsibility.
This is my own now. So there's no get them ready for someone else to get them. And, I won't have to see him the next day. It's like, oh, no, he's here. So I've seen how they've done it. And so our conversations, when it comes to children, those are questions that I ask. And like, okay, so is this, should I do this or should, I do that? Those kind of questions come up. I'm not ashamed to ask them because, I know if I didn't have them, then it would be a lot more difficult for me in terms of, helping to raise my son.
that shows how important it is to have support. And I think most people, when they think of being a support system for someone else,
Mhm,
it becomes overwhelming, so they just avoid
mhm,
it because
mhm,
we're all going through our life changes. But sometimes somebody just need an ear or a shoulder or to bounce off of them, questions. It's not always a financial investment or
mhm.
I got to give you my everyday investment, but we have to begin to be selfless in our support of each other, because I don't know if I'm having this issue and I need somebody to talk to. I don't know if you're having something that I can help you with. And we do this a lot in our interpersonal relationships, where another question that I have for you in terms of um where you are right now,
Mm.
what are you learning about yourself in terms of your needs and your ability to reach out to people with those needs?
I am another beautiful question. Thank you. I am learning more about myself that I can be really pig-headed
Uh-huh.
and stubborn, and a lot of the hindrances from me in the past have been not really asking or seeking help.
Okay.
And so what I have done to start to mediate that is to ask for help. Is ask
Mm,
for help. It's a no-brainer kind of thing, but at the same time, you gotta understand I was in a headspace where, again, as a man, as a
mm,
strong young black man, I was, expecting of myself to be able to take care of things that I have responsibility for.
right.
Whether it be a job, a significant other, or whatever the case may be, I have responsibilities that as a man I had to take care of. So, I didn't need nobody to help me with that because, I would be less of a man
Mm,
if I wasn't able to take care of myself and take care of
right.
my. So, and it didn't really get me anywhere. Well, it did to an extent. I wasn't able to get to a place where now I can do much better, knowing that I have other people supporting me while I'm trying to do better and get better.
Right.
And it's a matter of being able to feed off of other people's strengths. I know that I'm strong in this realm, but I know I'm weak in this realm. But I know
Okay.
this person over here, brother over here, or sister over here, is strong in that realm. So I need to be I need to be asking that person questions about how I can get myself better in that regards. And at the same time, if need be, I can help them in, what I'm strong in. So I've definitely learned the value of seeking and asking help. Going through the counseling, the therapy has been, that wasn't what I was planning for, but I'm glad that I did get that help. And I see now the benefit of that kind of help as well. So I am completely open to therapy and counseling and those kind of things, knowing that it has helped me so much. I mean, so much. So yeah, definitely asking and seeking help.
So what is therapy to you now versus I'll say, how do you define therapy now versus before you got the therapy? How do you define it?
Before I got to therapy, brother, I was like, man, I don't need nobody all up in my business. I don't need
Mm,
anybody in my headspace trying to figure me out, can't figure me out. You know what, my exact words, I would say who I am. I would say my
mm,
name. Well, my name is Fred. I don't need no help. That kind of thing. So yeah, bro, for real. I
wow.
was headstrong. I mean, being headstrong is not so bad, but it's bad when it is obviously a hindrance for your own personal growth.
Okay.
So being headstrong in a positive way is okay. I know mentally, I can do this, that, and I need help in this, that. But headstrong in a negative way is I don't need help at all. So therapy for me before,
Right.
I don't need help at all. But therapy now is, oh yeah, I need help and I need more help and I need more help and I need more help,
Yeah.
more help.
Yeah.
So
I think for me it was because the first time I went to therapy, it wasn't a good experience.
mm,
And now, almost 7 years later, I am getting therapy as a means to help me write my book. So it's a different experience because now it's about organizing my thoughts and
Mm,
somebody helping me through the
mm.
process of organizing my thoughts
Yes, sir.
versus before I thought therapy was it was a mouthful because I would have to admit to my wrong.
Mm,
I would have to fess up, and the
mm.
finger that I was pointing out to various people in my life, I would have to taste that three fingers pointing back at me. So
Sir.
that's what therapy was before
Mhm.
versus what it is now. Well, how old were you when you first got therapy?
I got therapy when I was last year. So yeah, 30. I was 30 going into 31.
That's
Mhm.
a that's a that's a strange. I won't say strange. That's a bad word. It's a different period because
Very
there's
good.
a space in life when a lot of the things and decisions that you have been making they are no longer important to you anymore. So you're dropping a lot of stuff off
Mhm.
anyway. So to start therapy in that moment
Mhm.
is strange. I say my first experience was bad because I chose somebody out of the necessity that I had to get therapy. I was ready for it, and
Mhm.
I thought I was ready, and the person who I chose wasn't my learning style in terms of picking
Mm.
the right
Okay.
therapist.
Okay.
Um, uh, do you is therapy ongoing for you now, or is it as you need it, or how do
Brother.
you determine?
Brother, my brother, let me tell you, I need therapy like yesterday, even
Mm-hmm.
after going through the program.
Okay.
And I make the joke with my therapist, like, bro, I'm not even paying you anymore, and you still talking to me like bro, we had
Mm,
we had sessions every Monday, and I'm going to our one-on-ones because I feel that the one-on-ones that I had with them before the group settings were
okay.
so much more
Oh, I
beneficial
would be
to
afraid
me.
of group therapy.
Oh,
'Cause
group
I
therapy.
gotta admit this stuff in front of other people too. Oh,
Yes,
you crazy.
sir.
You
Yes,
crazy.
sir. Group therapy is beautiful as well, but I love the one-on-one.
Yeah.
So our sessions, the group sessions were supposed to start, I believe, at like 6. I would get there at times 5. 4:40.
I'm laughing at you because that's how eager I was at
You
that first go round.
got
Very
you
eager.
you
Mhm.
you gotta be. And I love the fact that you were. And I would encourage you to continue to be that way if you're not already, because the more eager I was to get down and sit down in front of this man and just basically emote,
Right.
the better I got. And so that when the group session started, I was able and willing to share. And it wasn't like
Mm,
I had to, think about it. At first, yeah, I was like, I don't know these people from Adam. Why do I gotta, introduce myself and talk about myself and all that stuff? It became easy.
yeah.
It became easier, and we would talk. Me and my therapist before the session, we would talk from time I got there to the time the session started, and
Mm,
it was. I learned so much about myself, man. I I had to dig, yes, but when I did dig, it was never a a quiet moment. Like it wasn't
right.
dig, I bring it up and I had to wait a minute or I had to wait a while for a response. No, brother was on point. Brother was he brought it, he heard it, digested it, gave it back. Heard it, digested it, gave it back. And the more we had those kind of interactions, the better off I got. The better I got with, realizing, oh shoot, I did mess up in that regards. I did mess up in that regards. I did have my shortcomings in that regards. But okay, so how can I? What am I supposed to do now? What do I do now that I recognize that? Well, you work.
Right.
You work. You treat it like a
Continue doing the work.
You treat it as if it's a 9 to 5. And so my thing was, okay, so now that I recognize what it is, okay, I need to work on how to get myself better. So yes, of course, there was assignments that we were given and things like that. But now outside of the program, oh no, I text and I call. Text and I call. I had
Mhm.
actually a couple weeks ago.
What do you get? What are you feeling though? Like, what is your feeling at this point? Because I'm quite sure you still are at an amazement point. Like, it's almost like making a new friend because you have somebody to kind of lean on a little bit. But how do you feel? How does this make you feel to be able to release and talk about and express, even if you haven't necessarily let it go? But how does it feel?
Oh, it feels great. It feels great. And here's one of the fears I had was
Mhm.
that I would dump too much on him.
Okay.
And this was one of the conversations we had, like literally, like, hey, bro, I know that you're getting a lot from not just me, but from these other brothers. Like, what do you do to take care of yourself? He talks to somebody. Are you kidding me? He talks to
Uh,
he goes on, he takes time for himself. So your mentor has a mentor, your coach has a coach, like your therapist
yeah.
has a therapist. Like I don't and that's one of the things I learned, like, oh shoot, for real? Like these people aren't just and that's another thing I had to look past, like, oh, he's not a superhero just
Yeah.
taking all of this and saving the day for me. He's somebody that's being built up, broken down just like me. And
And
so
that my first experience, I believe that's what my letdown was because
mm,
I saw her flaws,
mm,
and I negligently I described her as a sister girl, and I felt like that's what our session was. Like,
mm.
you went through that. Well, let me tell you what I went through, and I was like, oh no, this is about
Wow,
me.
wow,
No, and
wow.
I saw the flaws in her, and I was
Mm,
like, nope. Nope, that's not the one. Nope. And maybe I should have, held on a little bit longer to understand what that is. But
mhm,
I would suggest that if this is your first time going to therapy, do not look for Superman or Superwoman.
mm.
Do not
Nope,
look. Now it's basic things that
mm,
I look at now when, so the person who I chose is somebody who I know is a friend of mine. So I feel comfortable addressing things to them in terms of me writing my book.
mm,
But and when I go out there and actually get a full out therapist, and this is a real therapist, I don't want him to listen to this and be like, I'm a real therapist. But this is a special situation. But in
mm,
terms of me actually going back to therapy, it really I have this, I want somebody with a faith, somebody who, and I think that's all, and maybe somebody that's black, and preferably a
mm.
male in this situation. Now that I'm able to now select, but don't go into it as you, and I never put that word to it until you just said it. I don't go into it looking for Superman or
Mm,
Superwoman because
don't.
you're gonna be highly upset.
You will
Like, you
disappoint.
got a therapist? No, I don't want a therapist with a therapist. But if they're listening to this stuff all day
You
and
want.
they are human and they have their own life and issues, why
Yeah,
don't you think I would want them to have a therapist after talking to me? Because
yeah,
I
brother,
need them to come back to me strong.
brother. I love this because you brought up another point that's be brought to my attention.
Hmm.
I was fortunate enough to be paired up with a an African American male as the counselor, the therapist. Um, and I love the point you brought up about the fact that your therapist was female, and I'm not downplaying female therapists at all. At all. I love therapy, whether you're man or woman. You know that 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 role is very much important, very much needed, but is not wrong to want to have a particular preference, especially
Right.
if you're going into therapy for the first time, knowing that I'm an African American male and that my outlook on things is going to be different from an African American female's perspective.
Mhm.
I would want to talk to somebody that is another African American male. And
It's
so,
the same way we select our doctors. I
yeah,
think you should think
exactly,
about selecting your
exactly,
therapist. Because
exactly.
for me, I weird enough, I have, as a doctor, I have a preference for women because
Okay.
I think male doctors to another male, they're too hard.
Mm,
It's dismissive on your feelings. I
okay.
have a preference for my barber. I want her to be a female. you know, at least, and it's not negating anybody else, but women are gonna pick the hair out. If you have an ingrown hair, they're gonna, you know, groom the whole experience. And from my experience, so why not be that selective with your therapist as well?
Because you got to think about this. At the end of the day, this is for your mental well-being. If this is chaotic and all over the place, the rest of the temple is going to follow suit. And so all this is all connected, brother. This is all connected. So it does not, it shouldn't offend, you know, anybody to want to have a preference for who you need help with for your mental well-being. Again, I was fortunate to have an African American male as my therapist, and I benefited so much because we were able to see things on the same, you know, the same playing field, you know, the same kind of perspective. Like, oh yeah, I'm a man too, and so yeah, I've dealt with the whole general conversation. I've dealt with, you know, the excuse me, the whole you had to be Superman kind of thing. I dealt with all of that too, bro. So it's not, and it's like, oh wow, really? Yeah.
But I didn't think about, and I'm laughing because I just wanted therapy. Yeah. Because you know, when you hit 30, it just everything hits you like a ton of bricks. All your life decisions from the last 10 years, if you haven't faced them yet, financial, mental, physical, relationship, family, at 30, it feels like, okay, you gonna keep ignoring me? Now I'm gonna put it in your lap. You gonna have to deal with it now. But I didn't think about being that selective. To be honest, I was like, I just need help. I need help. Whoever would have been in that office when I went to that office out Towson, it would have been good for me. I didn't care who. It could have been a gremlin sitting on the other side. So I just needed somebody outside of my friend and family circle to talk to. And you have to be more thoughtful in the process. Sometimes it's an emergency situation and you have to take what you can get, and then go beyond that. But be selective. Don't look for Superman or Superwoman. You know, shop like you shop for your doctor. Like, and I had to learn that men doctors are more, in my experience, have been more passive and more, you know, kind of dismissive, where women will sit down and listen to you and kind of break that wall, that neutral wall that doctors are taught to be or have. But I pick my barber the same way. I pick, you know, my friends the same way. Why not have that same power in picking your therapist? Exactly. How has your relationship with others changed since therapy?
Oh man. Well, I can go with immediate, and again, my siblings. Our relationship has changed phenomenally. Not just because of that, but again, because of the recent passings, is that we are, like I said, we're in much more communication than we ever have been.
Okay.
And so we talk, we text, group text, whatever you want to call it.
Is it that you're reaching out more, or are you just accepting the invitation more?
All of us equally, yes.
Okay.
And her. Right. Holistically. And it's we haven't been, I mean, we've been close. We've been close our whole lives, but in terms of checking in with each other, never. And that's another thing. We didn't know about this kind of checking in thing and why it's important to check in, because we haven't like really experienced the kind of trauma that would, you know, have us, you know, questioning so many things.
Okay.
So many things like, well, damn, why did grandpa have to go? Why did grandma have to go? Why did mom have to go? Beyond those questions is, man, so what are we going to do now? We're still here. We're still, you know, together. So what are we going to do now?
Right. It's tough when you're at situations where tragedy happens and that's what brings you together. But anytime is the best time, you know, even when things are good, find those moments. I try, and I have to be honest with myself. That's a difficult thing for me because I didn't grow up in an affectionate family. So communication is a part of affection for me now. You know, that I group that in with affection. And it's not always easy. And that's, you know, one of the things that I'm doing lives like this and interviews with you. And I'm following certain people on social media because I am trying to learn my love language in a way that allows me to move forward and not stand still and eventually start moving backwards. You know, I don't want to get comfortable in not communicating. I don't want to get comfortable in not having open relationships with people and being open in my relationships with people. I'm saying, you know, we have some similarities because that's a difficult thing for me.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's very difficult. And I don't think people acknowledge the difficulty in it because they are uncomfortable. So if we just don't address it, you know, that big pile of mess sitting on the floor is just gonna go away. Or eventually we go not realize that it's there, but it's there.
Yes, sir.
So in terms of your growth, what have your sisters said about your growth? Or have they remarked on where they see you are now versus where you were before?
Well, that's another great question. I will say that I know I'm a better brother than I have been in my entire life with them. Like I said, I remember growing up and watching them raise their children and all of that. I wasn't always there in terms of like, you know, being supportive or, you know, being the favorite uncle, you know, but being the fun uncle and all that. I mean, I would have time with their children from time to time. I'm sorry, hold on. Charge my laptop. I would have time with them from time to time, but it wasn't a consistent thing.
Right.
And so I know now I am much better, light years better than I was years ago, even just last year, because of everything that's happened. So I would say, you know, I'm one of the best brothers you could ever. Anyway,
but you then begin to connect the things that you were lacking to the things that now you have to offer.
Exactly.
You know, and I didn't. In the last 2 years, I've been very distant from family, more specifically, but just in general from people. And it wasn't until this pandemic that I realized how distant I had become. I was aware of it, but I just didn't focus on it. I kind of, you know, we had our normal everyday lives, but when you're stationary and all my work is from home now, I realized, oh, you've been missing in action. And things started coming up, and once I saw my nieces on social media, that was the part that connected hurt to me because I was like, man, these were the issues that I had with my uncles and aunts. You know, they did not make the time for me, and they did not. You know, parents need help. That's why you have uncles and aunts. That's why you have, you know, great aunts and uncles because your parents need help.
Village.
Right. And when you realize you're not being a strong member in that village, it hurts because, you know, if that child grows up lacking something, you're responsible for that. And that's not to drive you crazy. Yeah. Right. So how I support people is definitely based on what I did not receive. And I've kind of made that more professional now because I don't want to be directly responsible for your happiness. And I make that clear as a boundary, but I know my responsibility in helping my village out and my community and my family and friends. So it really is more, that word of intentions comes up a lot in healing because you have to become intentional until it's second nature to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I will commend you again for that and bringing up another beautiful point because I know me growing up, majority of my, well, still am, I am a natural introvert. And so reaching out.
It's just that idea of light attracting light. And you just, we'll speak after this because I'll make some things clear, but keep going.
But yeah, man, it was hard for me to reach out, hard for me to ask for help, hard for me to you know, be social.
Right.
to a higher degree. I would have my comfort zone where, okay, I say hi, I say what's up, I hang out a little bit, or I have my own little clique and we would hang out, all that stuff. But consistently, nah.
Yeah.
But what I had to learn, even more so with the mental health aspect, is that the more and more I shut myself down and shut myself away,
Yeah.
the worse the worse this gets, and this gets. Because as human beings, we need connection. We need connection. No man is an island unto himself, and that's a popular, it's a popular phrase, but it's true in the sense that we all have our own things that we need support with.
Right.
As we were talking earlier about me having a strength and a weakness, that someone helps me with my weakness and I help them with their weakness, and we bounce back and forth. We have a collaboration and things like that, so that I'm built up into a better version of myself, and that person is built up into a better version of himself. That can't happen if I'm shut off, from that person, or I'm shut away, and I just lock myself down and lock myself out. So now that I'm learning more about myself and more about how important my mental health is, conversations I have with people are easier. And so relationships are easier. And I'm not in a bragging way or saying that I've arrived at a point where I figured out how to make friends or I figured out how to not be introvert. No, I just figured out how to open this thing up some more, open this up. So that this and this and this, can all, be more comfortable with, sharing and even receiving, because you can be uncomfortable with receiving as well. I've learned that too.
That's often the most uncomfortable thing in receiving. Giving, you normally be like, nah, I don't got it. But receiving, it becomes a difficulty because one, if you don't think you're deserving of it, two, if you're not trusting of other people, three, if it's not something that has happened for you.
Right.
You don't know how to then receive. This is an interesting part of the conversation, because in making friendships or relationships or repairing, rebuilding bridges, if you will.
I've had to do that recently.
Well, and for me, it's when we speak about our guy culture, our male culture, it has been difficult. One, because I've not been a very trusting person, and I'm used to, okay, let me just do this myself, instead of reaching out and asking. But building relationships, where are you now? Because you just said what it takes to do that, but where are you now with those things versus before?
Well, it always boils down to consistency and intentional. Like I was just saying, I had to repair a couple of bridges myself. And so it's, reaching out to those people, and I've had to make some apologies. That was the first thing. I had to acknowledge the fact that, regardless of how we fell out, I know what happened on my end, which is what helped lead to the fallout. So I had to, acknowledge that, apologize, be straight up about it, and be willing to move forward, and it's not like I have to be in constant communication with the person every single day, but at least to a point where, I respond to a text now, or I respond to
Mr. Friday, you was damaged, Mr. Friday.
Stepping on some toes, then let it step, man, because my feet have been blistered this whole conversation. So it's responding to a text or responding to a call more often. Being open to.
What about initiating them?
Oh yeah, I've had to initiate. I mean, I had to initiate the apology. So that was a big step. That was a big step for me. Is initiating it and being real with what happened, being real with moving forward. How to keep in contact, those kind of things, because we're all grown ups. We're all grown now. Me and my friends, we're all grown now. So we all have our own families. We all have our own lives. We all have our own work that we have to be mindful of. So it's not like we're always going to be able to, at the drop of a dime, respond. But at the same time, it's doing that. And, if we have time to catch up, we catch up
Right.
and we have conversations. And I've gotten better. It still needs work, but I've gotten better in terms of initiating conversations, being consistent, being more consistent with those conversations, and just being real with, the fact that, I messed up
Okay.
and in those relationships. So
How has that affected so something like this where I simply reached out to you? Would this have been possible before? And like dealing, I kind of got that, but dealing now, how are you more open to new relationships?
and yeah, automatically no. Fred last year,
Just off the break. Just off the break.
Fred last year, 2018, 2019, no.
Okay.
No. But what has changed is again the awareness. The awareness of knowing that my holistic health is a need. Honestly, is a need. Everybody has a need in some form or fashion with their health. Everyone has a struggle. Everyone has a fight. Everyone has a battle, and it's not to diminish that person individually. No, it's acknowledging the fact that, okay, I'm human. I have flaws, but strengths as well. And I know that I can't get to the best version of myself unless I have a helping hand, unless I have an olive branch extended my way. So now that I've gotten more aware of that, oh yeah, these kind of conversations are, oh yeah, I love it. I love it. I don't even, it's been 2 hours, but it's like,
right.
I have something I have to get to. Oh no, I'll be here. I'll be here until the sun go down, because these kind of conversations.
I'm dealing with myself in this conversation right now, because it's hard hearing your self come out of somebody else's mouth. It's very difficult, but for me, my balance has been, because I'm a actor, so I'm paid and I'm asked to go on stages and become something. But being who you authentically are in a moment where you could definitely go and retreat, and it's a challenge, because me reaching out to people is something that only because I've been in radio for about 8 years now, only because of that thing, I've learned how to reach out to people. But in the beginning, that relationship was so not real, and it was so putting on a character. It was so me, and now even through this pandemic where we have to be face to face virtually, I had to evolve even in that, to build like an authentic relationship with people, because it's really, it's not, it was easy for us in this moment to not be real and to be very, robotic in our expression and our conversation, because it's a screen, there's space. I don't know where you are versus where I'm at, but it is difficult listening to yourself come out of somebody else's mouth, because you like, now I don't have an issue with trash. I don't have that.
Brother, it was staring at me, and I wasn't. My peripheral was,
you were staring at it.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, if she don't do something about the trash, so I just
in that moment, we could simply, like you did, you can ask her, because sometimes I don't like to impede in people's space, but you could have simply said, "Let me go put this trash out," and it not have been. You didn't even have to say anything, because sometimes people do get offended, but just being that support. And I'm learning now, just do it. If you see a need, just feel it. Just feel it. Because sometimes people are going through pride issues and ego issues. And I have 4 children and they're home all day issues. And I'm tired of them looking at them issues. Yeah. But sometimes if you see a void, fill it. Be that person. Because I haven't been as, like I said, I've been distant from a lot of people recently. So I've had to support people in a way where it's I don't have to call them up, or they don't have to call me up. So if they're selling something, I'll go online and buy it. Or if they open a new restaurant, I'll eat from there one day out of the week or something. Or if they're doing a live, I'll share it. I'll share it or like it or comment or help them to push it. But helping on your level is very key, especially in the beginning phases of you reestablishing relationships and healing all over again. It is really just do what you can on your level. It doesn't have to be a certain thing. As Black men, help on the level that you're on. Don't try to go beyond, or don't try to go or super exceed where you are. Just help where you are. Be a blessing from where the space where you're at. The part that we have not addressed in this conversation is our spiritual self. So spiritually, where are you in this motion? Because I don't think you necessarily talked about it, but I got it from your conversations when I was following the challenge. But where are you spiritually in this moment?
Well, spiritually, I am not as strong as I used to be, to be completely frank. A couple years ago, and that's another long story. That's another hour-long conversation, brother.
Next time. That's next episode.
I'll give you a synopsis. So the last church that I was a part of for about 5 years. And spiritually, yes, I eventually became very, very strong. Prayer life, study life, and all of that was really strong. But I didn't have a full grasp on what it is to be a part of a church as to being a part of the body.
Okay.
So
that's two separate things.
That is two separate things. So yes, I was very much a part of a church building. Like, I was a member of a church building, and I was building a relationship with the Lord, at the same time. So these are things that we do, at the same time, for, general person, being a part of a church. Right. So there was a lot of contentions that began to build between me and leadership in the church.
Okay.
And so it got to a point where stopped seeing eye to eye. Things weren't really lining up. I started noticing things going on in the church that were not what I was reading in the Bible, or weren't lining up to what we were teaching. And so eventually I left.
Okay.
And I left with a lot of anger. I left with pride. I left with ego, because I had gotten to a point where I was studying a lot more than I ever have in my walk. And I was praying more than I ever had in my walk. And I was learning more than I ever had in my walk. And I was learning we had Bible study and things like that, but I was doing a lot of personal study. I was doing a lot of personal time, with just me and the Lord. And I felt that I got to a point now where I wasn't boastful in my leaving, but I was not agreeing with what was being done to an extent. So I left, and like I said, I left with a lot of anger and a lot of resentment. And I think that ultimately caused me to lapse on, my spiritual walk. So it's not as strong as it used to be, but I haven't forgotten the importance of it at all, because, studying more and more about the mental health aspect, I've learned that, it's holistic, spirit, mind, and body. Man is comprised of, 3 things. And so it's wrong to try to separate those things, or to try to separate and isolate those things, because you're imbalanced, you're unstable at that point. Right. What is a man? An unstable man is, unstable in all his ways. Something in that regards. I misquoted, but I think you understand it.
I got you.
But yeah, you're off balance. You're off kilter. You're not stable. So there's going to obviously be some problems that you're going to have to deal with in yourself. And so my spiritual walk has, taken some steps back, but I haven't forgotten the importance of it.
Okay.
It's just that I've been introduced to a whole new aspect that I was completely ignorant of for my whole life. Like there was physical and spiritual, and now I'm just learning about the mental. And I'm like, oh my God.
Just being connected in that way. I think this pandemic has turned that on its head though, because we haven't been able to go to an actual building, and it's forcing spiritual leaders and church to be done in a different way and to address it in a different way. And now it's a really come as you are, because I'm just clicking on my laptop and turning it on. And it's helpful because I can go from service to service and listen to and be able to simply hear the word. And now it's more interactive because I can comment during the service. I can push the like button or send some hearts. And I think pastors are starting to learn it in a different way now, where it's supposed to be a conversation and not just you talking down or talking at me, but we're communicating. And it's not just, sliding in one of the member's name during the service as you're talking, but now you're able to address an actual question or a comment based on something somebody wrote in the comment section. Because I became that person. So I have a friend who just started a church, and at some point I was like, oh, maybe I should stop typing because ain't nobody else typing right now. But then I started noticing other people commenting, because I don't think they just was used to sitting and watching and observing the service, not being a part of it, So I think it's breaking down a lot of boundaries. And when we do get back to a semblance of a normalcy for ourselves,
it's going to be different,
right? It's going to have to be the normal way of doing it, not just virtually, but you're going to have meetings on Sunday and not just service on Sunday. Like it's going to have to be that way. And there are other service, I went to a church. I think they're kind of anti-church, but I can't remember. It was like the name escapes me, but they have more meetings for their service. And I was like, the Lord ain't in here, but just in looking at it, like that's how they commune. That's how the ethical society, that's what they call it.
Break bread,
Right. So that's how they decided to be who they were. But it's just interesting. I was really impressed, one, by your honesty being a Black man, and it's not typical for us to be that honest and that forthcoming in our pursuits to simply heal. It didn't look like you were looking for likes or attention or praise, but this was something that you were honestly challenging yourself with, and that came through that message. Oh, I wouldn't have reached out if I didn't feel it. I wouldn't have reached out,
bro. I beat myself up the past 4 or 5 months. I mean, I'm welcome to the comments. I've gotten some comments sometimes, and it's beautiful. And I've gotten some people that encourage me while I'm doing it, that are appreciative of what I do. But it's all about the awareness, bringing more awareness to it. But the challenge is real. The challenge is real, my brother. It's real. But I thank you so much. I really didn't imagine that it would, reach this far. Like I said, going through the initial one was just a no-brainer. Like, oh, I love push-ups. But then I read the caption. That he nominated me in, and like I said, once I got through the program that got me to become a mental health coach and advocate, it started to speak louder.
Okay.
I'm like, mental health awareness, anxiety, and depression. That's what I'm battling with.
Yeah. So what does it feel like to now be on that side of it?
It's scary. To be honest, it's scary.
Well, you got your person to go to, so you got your support system.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary because I'm doing things I've never done before.
Right.
Social media in itself, I was never really savvy or paid much attention or gave much credit to social media.
Okay.
So that's a completely new ball game for me. Again, exposing myself but in a positive way, more so than I ever have in my life. Being more consistent with it and understanding the cause behind it is worthwhile. So it's scary, but at the same time, it's exciting. Learning something new is always exciting to me. So it's exciting. And I just love it. I just love it to be able to do what I love to do anyway. Like I love fitness. So there are days where, oh my God, I don't feel like getting up and doing this exercise. But there are also days like, oh man, I can't wait to get this, get this video on.
So did you have a certain time of day or a certain pattern for it, or was it just when it was in the moment of it?
I wanted to do the videos and post them at a time where I know there will be a lot more activity on social media, because I know that there's certain times in the day where there's a huge influx of activity, as opposed to days where, certain times of the days where activity goes down.
Okay.
So initially I was more mindful of the time, but now that, I've started doing several different things, I'm trying I'm studying and I'm trying to learn different things in this field, where it's like, you know what, man, shoot, I'm gonna go ahead and post this video. It's gonna be posted when it's posted. Hopefully somebody sees it today, but if not, they'll see it the next day. So I don't have to think so much about the certain time, because that's just going to add to the stress. And, you don't want to get into something like that, with your body under the stress, because you can get injured. You can injure yourself, literally. You can literally injure yourself. And it takes away from the purpose, if you get my drift, as opposed where it's like, I got to do this video for video's sake, as opposed to I got to do this video because somebody needs help.
The intention has to be honest and coming from a for real place, because that's one of the reasons I don't really and I'll say for the last year it's been difficult for me bringing on guests. So I've done more shows this year alone than I've ever done before. And it's all about intentions to me, and I'm not judging anybody, but it's your intention. I don't want to do something simply for the fact of attention, or how will I financially benefit from this?
How will I gain out of this?
Right, because when you start chasing money, one of my mentors said to me, once you start chasing money, you'll always be in a circle. And that's where you'll stay. You'll just keep going in that circle as long as you're chasing it. Prepare and do the things that are needed for your field, and you'll be seen. You'll get seen. You'll get the support system. It'll generally be organic as it grows. And sometimes it's too slow for some people, so they push the envelope a little bit.
Well, that is beautiful. I love that. That sums it all up for you. The money will, the finance aspect, the money will come. But if you're genuine about your purpose, you're genuine about your push, and you're genuine about what you stand for, then the following will come. You'll look down, you're like, oh my God, these many people follow me. Like I wasn't expecting someone to send me a direct message about interviewing me. Because of the challenges, I saw that message. Immediately, I was like, "Oh my God, what the hell?"
Because you were focused on what you were doing versus how people are seeing it, and that may have been a thought, but that means you were focused on what you were doing.
Yeah,
I can appreciate that. Even how you responded, I could tell it was like, okay, let me get back to this, because this is not what I was. I could see that. I could see you wasn't prepared.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know.
Even though, even throughout your challenges, you're talking to people, so you're already on this platform. But when you're in what you're doing, it just becomes a part of what you're doing. And even for me, like the first half of this process for me in doing radio and podcasts, I didn't think about the relationships with other people, like me actually going to their shows and doing interviews. I always welcome people onto my platform, but I never thought about participating on the other side.
Because you help push that. You help push their agenda, their vision as well. So that's a beautiful thing.
but I love the intentional aspect of what you're doing, and I would love to see where it goes.
Me too.
In terms of how you incorporate other people into it, in terms of maybe doing classes, because I see that a bit for me. This pandemic has is challenging me because I haven't been active the way I'm used to being active. I don't even really walk around much. So the necessity for me to get back into shape and get back into, and balancing that mental health with and adding that to fitness, I think it will be beneficial because I'm a person, I'll walk, I'll do, some calisthenics, but that whole exercise thing, I need a big push because I am getting older. But if I have an intention attached to it versus just exercising,
I love that word.
Yeah, but it will help. I know a lot of people it's helping them, and I don't want to just because the doctor say, okay, now you got to get this in order, you got to eat this way, you got to do. I don't. That doesn't motivate me. It should, but it doesn't. It doesn't.
I remember, and I don't mean to cut you off, but it's just before I forget it. I saw something, and I may be misquoting myself, where it says that action is the best motivation. Where just doing it,
just doing it.
Yeah, just not looking. Oh my gosh. Well, you seen the video, so you've seen the different shirts I wear. The shirts I wear are intentional as well.
Okay.
So the thing is, action is the best motivation, and I hope I'm not misquoting that, but just doing it.
You created your own quote if you didn't.
Well, yeah, but just doing it. That's one of the reasons. One of the hashtags I have is move something. Is bruh, just moving something, just getting up, literally just standing up.
Okay.
Helps the body, to get the energy flow going, to just breathe.
But what you're doing is necessary during this time, because I remember the first month or so, I teach. So at the end of the school year, it got a little muddy in terms of how we were teaching because we didn't finish normal. So it was a vacation for me. And I remember the first time I had ran out of food, because I only had planned for 2 weeks. So I was like, I'm just going to be here chilling. I'm going to make some big pot of spaghetti and just chill on this. But I remember the first time I got up and I'm on the third floor of my apartment, and just to walk down the stairs, it felt like I just got my legs. And I was like, you know that wobbly feeling your legs get after exercising. Well, I was getting that simply walking down the steps. Wow. And I was like, I thought something was wrong, but I didn't realize I had not been doing going downstairs. For 2 weeks, I didn't leave the house. I didn't even check the mail for 2 weeks because I was like, if it's a bill, it's going to be there when I'm ready to go back to work. But once I realized, this is going to be a norm for a while, then I started being more active. And I was like, my legs don't work the same way because I didn't think about staying active throughout the process. So I think for some people, especially both of them, and our mental, because I went through a dark period through this because I was like, I'm used to being in a classroom with students. I'm used to being at rehearsals. I'm used to being at the station doing my show. And all that stuff was cut off. Yeah. And then it went into that first month of just doing nothing. And then that second month, everything was just canceled. And you was like, man, what am I mentally? I've never been in that space before. So I didn't know how to handle it. So my first response was to create something. So I started doing these virtual shows, plays, doing readings of plays online, and trying to, out of this pandemic, I've started maybe 3 new podcasts, separate podcasts, and just trying to fill up the space. And that's not always healthy because you're just distracting yourself from what's really wrong. And then I was forced to deal with, so what do you do? How do we handle this? What are we going through? And that's been recently.
You just said another very powerful statement is you're distracting yourself.
Yeah.
You're distracting yourself from what's really the problem, what really what really is the situation. So you didn't want to check your mail because that was a trigger. You knew what it was. You knew what was in that mail.
So right. That was I don't want to see Xfinity or BGE telling me anything. Dude, I don't want to hear about nothing being due.
Right. But I commend you again, because just doing something, in spite of what this pandemic is and how it's affected us individually. Because I can remember before the pandemic, I was a Lyft driver. And before that, I was working at the airport before I, got arrested. So I was used to, for 8 months as a driver, getting up early in the morning, getting in the car and driving, and eventually picking people up and taking them places. And that was my norm for 8 months. And I got comfortable doing that. It didn't pay all that well, unfortunately, because of my situation, but I did enjoy, aspects of it, meeting new people, talking to different people, things like that. So when the lockdown happened, I couldn't do that. I couldn't just get in the car and drive out somewhere and pick somebody up and, talk to them and drop them off at their destination. I couldn't do that anymore. So I got stuck. I had to sit down.
Because of the pandemic and you just chose to not do it anymore, or was it just?
Well, the financial, there was a financial problem. I was renting a vehicle out, and I was a rental program. So majority of the money I made in a week went to the program before it hit my pocket. And so that wasn't really a real feasible way for me to not just take care of myself, but get things that my son would need. So I had to turn the vehicle back in and stop driving. And I did that like literally right before everything shut down. So God was definitely telling me, hey man, you done with this. You had it for a season, it's a wrap. All right. So I had to, for real. That's how I look at it now.
Right.
So I had to sit in my own stuff and deal with myself in that regards as well. And this was, following, the, while I was going through the counseling program and the therapy, I had to really start putting those things into practice. Really had to start being more aware of who I am and where my mental state is and how to continue to get this right so that what's going on externally doesn't ultimately hinder me internally. So I had to get a little creative myself. And one of the things that, like I said, really sparked it was the fitness challenge. And once I got through the mental health coaching and things like that, I started to think of ways to like sort of marry the two. And so I'm actually working on that now, which is why it's interesting you brought that up. I'm working on ways to marry the two, to, have mental health be the forefront, but bring in that physical aspect and explain how the two are related.
Right.
They're very closely linked. It's mind blowing how closely linked they are. Where, I talked about the movement, simple movements like standing up, strategic breathing. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but that's another big one. Just breathing and listening to your heartbeat, slowing your heart rate down, and just becoming more aware of your surroundings, becoming more aware of again, your breathing, becoming more aware of if you're outside, the sun or the wind or, the trees and, things like that. Or if you're inside, the noises that you may not hear in a house that you're so used to just ripping and running around. And so the process of just slowing things down, slowing yourself down, being more aware of yourself and your surroundings aids to your mental health, because now you're able to breathe a little easier. You're able to deal with those negative thoughts. You're able to, deal with yourself in a more real way, where, as before, you distract yourself, as you mentioned before, you distract yourself with a video game or social media or something else. You find something to take your mind off of what's really going on in the mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Where
it makes that. I mean, that makes perfect sense because it
Mhm,
doesn't. Sometimes we want to itemize everything that we're doing and keep it
mhm,
separate, but
mhm,
often combining things that we like to do with things that we have to do, it helps you get through it. You know, with teaching children, you often have to figure out how to get children to do the work. So you got
mhm.
to make it fun. You got to make it interesting. You got to
Exactly. You gotta be creative.
make it
Yeah.
distracting
Hmm.
because you're sneaking in lessons and learning, and then they're still able to be active. And I teach babies, so you got to keep them
You gotta be
right.
patient.
Yeah, you got to
Okay.
be active. But that's the same principle for adults,
Oh
more
yeah.
so for adults, because
Hmm.
sometimes we have to be distracted from the monotony of being an adult and still
Yeah.
getting the things that we need to get in.
Yeah.
And that is not always it's not always easy. I'm being the first one, so I'm going to challenge you by saying,
Okay.
how can you and your program help me to get back to a physical state and still deal with the mental awareness side of doing this? Because that's, I think, not realizing how the two of them can be helpful.
Hmm.
you know, we got a lot of trainers out there, but they need to be focusing on mental health because if we're able to distract ourselves from the stuff that or get to the core of the issue, because
Hmm.
me getting slim and trim and tight is great, but if my mind isn't right, my body changing is not going to be useful because I'm gonna
Exactly.
still be stuck in that same mode, and I'm gonna gain the weight back, and I'm gonna be unhealthy again, and because I'm not addressing what's really wrong, and it's not even. We can go deep with the eating habits, but no, there's something else wrong. Why are you eating that way? Well, in Black communities, we eat when we cry, we eat when we happy, we eat when we sad. Like breaking down and reestablishing our behavior. That's how those two work together.
Yes, sir.
Figuring it
Sir.
out. And we can say that, but applying it is something totally different because then it
Mhm.
becomes a challenge, as you clearly showed us in these 25 days. Like
Yes, sir.
it's real.
Yes, sir. Now I will. You challenged me, and I love that because no,
And
no,
it's live, it's recorded.
it's cool. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's going to help me with structuring my program that much more. So I'll respond to your challenge with this. So are you a sports fan by any chance?
Yeah, for not like a diehard, but I'll watch it.
Okay. Um, what would you say you watch the most of in terms of sports? Basketball, football?
I'm actually more of like tennis, lacrosse,
Oh, beautiful.
soccer.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so I
Football
will,
is designated to Super Bowl time. I don't got time for all the games.
okay.
Who won? Who the two winners? And let's go to them.
Okay. I asked about the sports aspect because it's an easy conversation now because sports, you have football season now, and we just recently had basketball season. And if you can recall your favorite athletes, who would be like your top three?
My favorite athletes, more so basketball. So it
Okay.
would be like, of course, Jordan,
Okay.
Magic Johnson, and his name just jumped out my head. Alvin Iverson.
Allen Iverson. Okay. So all right, we're going to use Jordan as a as an example.
I'm just gonna say you're not an Iverson fan, so it's cool. It's cool.
Allen Iverson. I love Allen Iverson, but I
You
don't
good,
know.
you good. I'm joking.
I don't know his story as well as I know Mike's story.
Okay. Okay.
But I was actually a 76ers fan for a good while. I lived in Philly, so
Oh.
But yeah, Michael Jordan was he was a really he was a great athlete. So
Mhm.
I will even do it like this. So there's a lot of conversation where LeBron James is compared to Michael Jordan, or even Kobe Bryant has been closely compared to Michael Jordan in terms of accolades, playing style, longevity, things like that. So and it's not just to isolate the sports at all, because any high level athlete would have to go through this same kind of regimen, where you have the physical regimen, of course, but then there's also the mental aspect. So I recently learned that LeBron James, and he's not my favorite player at all. My favorite player is actually Dwayne Wade, but LeBron James, I actually learned that he actually takes mental health very seriously in terms of how he prepares for games, season, whatever the case may be, his workout. The mental aspect is something that he takes very seriously. And I mean, you can see the brother's been playing for what, 17 seasons now, I believe. And there's always these questions about, well, is this going to be it? Is this going to be the last the last dance or something like that? Time will tell, and only LeBron James, time will tell. Only LeBron James can say when he's done. But the fact that there is an emphasis on the mental aspect, whether he talks about meditation, actually resting, things like that, things to keep the body, strong. Of course, physically, weight training and all that stuff. But when you rest, when you sleep, when you meditate, you're building these muscles. So you're building this up in addition to the physical body. So how do you do that? Well, there's different ways to meditate. There's different ways you can go about, like I was saying with meditation, how you can become more aware of your surroundings, how you can be more aware of, your heart rate, how you become more aware of yourself, and how you can really start to really come face to face with these thoughts that you have. And it's not to say that when you meditate that these things go away. Oh no, thoughts come regardless of whether you're aware of it or not. So when you're meditating, you're much more aware of it. So if you've ever tried to work out stressed out, how does that normally end up? Do you even work out? Do you even work out? Or you tell yourself mentally, nah, I ain't gonna work. I don't feel like it. I don't know what it is. I just don't have any energy. But why don't you have any energy? Maybe there's something that you haven't addressed in here that is keeping you from wanting to actually do the exercise or exercises. So when he was talking about how the mental health aspect is an important thing that he needs to, be aware of, competes. And it's not just him. I brought up Jordan because, Jordan played at a high level. I can't recall any time I haven't seen him play at a high level in basketball up until, of course, his latter years. And how does an athlete do that? Or how does a Roger Federer play so well? How does a Rafael Nadal, how does a Serena Williams play so well for so long? What do they do that other athletes don't do, that don't get to that point of, such superstardom that no one can touch their accomplishments? Well, there's a mental aspect that goes into it. There's an understanding that the mind and the body are so connected. Is ridiculous. So stretching, a simple movement of stretching, just stretching your body, getting yourself limber, helping the blood flow a lot easier. So you have the physical aspect where you're stretching and you're stretching your leg, or you're stretching your arms, or you're rotating your body, where you stretch your back so that your breathing is easier. Your blood can flow through the rest of your body a lot smoother, a lot easier, so that when you do these physical activities, it's not to say you'll never get tired, but you have more energy to do so. And there's a lot more science that goes into it in terms of, the body internally, the blood, the nervous system, muscular system, circulatory, cardiovascular, all those things that add to it. But when you have the intent to do these exercises, or you have the intent to, okay, after you do these exercises, I got to rest. I have to sleep. I have to recover so that the body can recover. The body can, continue to grow and get stronger so that, when you have to, deal with, you have to play at this high level, you're able to do so consistently because you take the time to not just train physically, but train mentally as well. So there's a lot more that goes into it. I just wanted to give like a little, sort of like a synopsis of the importance of it. Like I said, I'm working on a program right now where I want to engage the mental aspect where, I want people to, start to begin to build towards their mental fitness, and that will segue into their physical fitness. And the physical fitness, I feel, is like a sort of is easy. It's like a default, but the mental fitness is going to really address things like, okay, what does meditation look like? How can I meditate? Affirmations, how should I be talking to myself? How can I drown out these negative thoughts when they come? Okay, speak some positivity, and those negative thoughts will start to, lessen. It's not to say they won't be there, they won't come back, but the more you positively speak about yourself, the less you'll hear from the less the less you'll hear from the negative thoughts. I just did that today, actually. Positive affirmations, talking to yourself. Yeah, literally talking to yourself. It's not. That's another stigma where you're not crazy, but it's just you're becoming aware of who you are and you're trying to build yourself into a better version. So why not introduce that better version to a better form of thinking, or a better way of thinking, or a better way of speaking to that person, where you're so used to man up or grow up or get over it. Well, how about I know I can do better because I think better, or I will become successful in this, or I am better today than I was yesterday.
Who's your
Or
target group? Do
my
you want to target this to people
I'm,
in general, or men, or young men, or?
I have it tailored more towards males, to
Mm-hmm.
men around my age. Um,
Okay.
as a jump off, I wanted to have it tailored towards men,
Okay.
because it's not is men and mental health is something that doesn't get talked about often enough. So as far as like starting it off, I want to definitely target men.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's how do I do that? How do I affirm? How do I meditate? Journaling, writing things down, not just leaving thoughts festering in here, but writing them out, and visualizing yourself, having a vision board, setting some goals, setting some things that you want to accomplish, and positively speaking to yourself about reaching those things. So the
Okay.
mental fitness is the start off, and then I want that to segue into the physical fitness, where we check in, and we check in daily, like, okay, how are you feeling today? Or are you feeling like this? Okay, write that down, meditate on that. Okay, the day two, how are you feeling? While you're writing that down, affirm yourself, positively talk to yourself, speak to yourself, while you're while you're going through your day. Write a gratitude list. A gratitude list is something that I wrote down myself, and it has made me feel so much better about everything else in general. I mean, life still happens, things are still happening in my life, but the fact that I have a list written out of things that I'm grateful for, that's something
Mm-hmm.
I always go back to and remind myself, okay, it's not all that bad. Well, I still have health, I still have my son, I still have my family, I still have this. So what things can you do to keep yourself afloat, to keep yourself fit? Because you have a workout regimen where you have to, well, let's say you do like you work out 3 times a week. So every, in those 3 days, you're always doing something to complement what you did the other day, or you're
Okay.
doing something to add to build up to a point where, over after a while, you see yourself physically changing. It's the same thing mentally. So day one, you visualize yourself as a better person. Day 2, you meditate. Day 3, you daily affirm. You affirm. Day 4, basically talking to yourself. Day 4, you're journaling, you're checking in, things like that. After a while, these things become habitual to where, no one has to check it. Well, people can still check in, but it's something that you find joy in doing. You'll find yourself doing that and not even realize you're doing it. It becomes habit. It becomes, and that becomes behavior. And then that becomes who you are. And then you find yourself becoming a better version of yourself.
Was there any thought or
I know it was
desire to be where you are now?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Was there any thought or desire in the past or as a child to be where you are now? Like what the way you're speaking about this is clear that you have studied it, but you are also living it. But was there a thought or desire to be this person?
Brother, I wanted to be a herpetologist when I was in college. I wanted to study reptiles. I wanted to. I love science and I loved animals. I love them less than I used to, but only because I have fears of wild animals. They're wild. They
Freddie, we gotta get Freddie. We gotta do a circle around Mr. Freddie. Trash and live animals. Let's work on that.
I still love animals, but you gotta understand okay, maybe I watched the wrong kind of television with wild animals. I watched too many bears attacking people.
You're saying.
So let me say that I used to love animals to the point that I wanted to study them. How about that?
Okay.
I used to love animals to the point I wanted to study them. So mental health and all that was nowhere in the game plan at all. And before that, I wanted to I think I just wanted to like have my own zoo. I used to watch a lot of Animal Planet and Steve Irwin, so I loved.
So you never tried to work at the zoo?
No, I never.
Okay, so that I understand you now because you never put yourself in the environment. It was a distant desire.
Yeah, I watched too much stuff on television and eventually YouTube about animals. When bears attack, things like that. But I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. Never mind. I'm good. In terms of mental health, that was never in the cards for me.
Okay.
In the cards for me. It's become like a whole new. It's a whole new realm of just seeing things differently, hearing things differently, like
experiencing them.
Experiencing it. Yes, exactly. I love it. Experiencing things differently. I can experience. I'll give you a case in point. So I can experience road rage. I had some road rage at times. I can experience road rage now differently. Somebody cut me off a couple years ago, probably would have got
you seem so unassuming, though. You're not the person who I would think would go off. But okay.
When I'm cruising, I'm like cruising. If you like interrupt that cruising, then we gonna have a problem. But now
this was not when you were driving people anywhere. Hopefully,
most of the time I'm by myself. Most of the time,
okay.
When I was doing Lyft, no, I had to check that. I had to check that because I'm doing customer service. So
right.
Myself at the door. But now I can look at it like, you know what? Why did that person cut me off? Like what's going on with them? Like why are they? First of all, why are they driving like that?
Yeah.
And why am I giving attention to how they're driving? I need to worry about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So things, I start to look at things a little differently. It's still work, but I'm starting to look at things a little differently. I'm starting to hear things a little differently. Like you mentioned the word crazy earlier. I don't know if you remember it, but that's a word that I'm not so much a fan of anymore because now that I know more about, we
have a bigger vocabulary for what that word means to so many people.
And the thing is, there's an imbalance. I look at it now like everything that goes wrong up here is an imbalance. There's a chemical imbalance. There's so many things that the body has in it that it uses to function on a daily basis. We know that, but we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And so to say somebody is crazy is it adds a negative connotation to it. So I like to think of it as an imbalance. You know, something's out of kilter. It's like taking
my sister is imbalanced. I'm laughing, but that's how you have to apply the language to your everyday self.
Yes, exactly. That's a positive way of saying that, you know what, you might want to see what's really going on behind that. It's like taking your car in for a checkup. It's like taking a car in that is wrong with it. Oh, I need an oil change. And you take it to the shop and then come to find out you something else is wrong. Like your alternator needs to be fixed or something like that. And it's like, oh, I didn't know that.
Right.
I didn't know that going in initially. I know I wanted to get it checked in for this, but you're telling me it needs to get this done? Oh shoot.
But I think like going backwards a little bit is one of the reasons as a teacher, I always tell my parents, expose your children to their desires. And it could be expensive because children change their mind like the weather changes, but expose them or find a way on your level to expose them to these things, because then they grow up and life is bombarding them and they have a passion for something or they have an inkling of something inside of them and they have yet to experience it. So they're more hesitant to try things as we get older. So it's really important that you try things with your children as adults. Try that thing that you've been thinking about.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people who are doing this during the pandemic, and you like, why are you just waiting to do this now? Because they never had the moment.
The time, the moment really probably never presented itself. And then there's the time. There's a time aspect. The pandemic, you know, how bad it has been, you know, unfortunately, the many losses we've had. At the same time, there's been so much benefit. Like I've had so much time to learn, not just about myself, but just learn, period. I always love learning new things. So you have the time to learn different ways of doing things or learning something new. It helps the mind develop. You know, it teaches the mind something new. So all kinds of, you know, things are firing off in your mind and your brain where it's like, oh man, now I have this that I know how to do.
Right.
Now I'm able to look at this a little differently, you know. So it's being able to now have time to learn something different or learn something new is going to benefit you in the long run. You know, whether it's learning how to cook or learning how to do something in your house, learning how to fix something. Doing it yourself, fixing something on your car for the first time. It's something that's going to help develop this up here and keep this busy. It's not like you want to distract yourself, but you want to have this be working like your body is working. Your body's working. Why not let your mind constantly work?
Right. Well, I'm thoroughly like I'm convinced. And when can this be possible? When is this? You know, are we in a beta phase? Let me try the beta phase of this out right now because it's necessary.
I want to jumpstart it. I'm planning to jumpstart the mentally fit aspects early December. Within the first week.
Okay.
I'm still working.
That's 2 weeks, sir. That's 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know what? I'm working on I'm actually working on God honest truth. I'm actually working on building up my support system. And my accountability team. So if you have to, sir, you are free to bombard me with messages to remind me to get on a good foot. So
don't tell because I will schedule that in my phone right now.
Hey, do what you gotta do because I still have the nerves and the anxiety, which is why this talk is so real to me because yes, you can conquer, certain things, but this kind of journey is ongoing. So me talking so much about it, me being so free about it,
Right.
um, and telling you at the same time that I still have anxiety and still have, moments of stress, lets you know that it's an ongoing process. It's something that you don't just arrive to. You don't just get in the car, drive somewhere, arrive, and come back. You get in the car
Yeah.
and you're gonna have to keep going and keep going and keep going. So yeah, if you gotta get up on me, get up on me. But
I'm loving how this moment has allowed people to step outside of themselves and
yes,
be things
yes,
that typically we would not
yeah,
allow them to be. And I'm specifically speaking about um, groups of people, like specific
yeah,
special groups of people, whether they be men or ex-cons or
yep,
single moms or people over the age of ... is
mhm,
allowing people to explore things. And specifically, as we were speaking on men throughout this conversation,
yeah,
I want to push guys to be able to do things that uplift them and doesn't simply pay them, because you'll find yourself in situations where you're getting paid for something but you have no enjoyment in it, so then it becomes a job and a chore and you like, I don't want to do this no more.
right,
So finding things, so that idea of these multiple streams of income,
uh-huh,
do multiple streams of income, live your best life, but do things
mhm,
that you're passionate about, do things that connect to your wellness, to
mhm,
your dreams and your desires, and not just something that is on the Fortune 500 list of things that will pay you
exactly,
well. Because
exactly,
I'm tired of, I'm just tired of seeing people leave a career after 30 years and they open up a bakery or a clothing shop or a blog, and they wasted so much time. I understand the time that was wasted, and
mhm,
often it's not even wasted time because you got some skill sets out of that that will
right,
help you to further that passion or that desire that you have. But this jump out there, this has
mhm,
been the
yep,
time to
yeah,
throw caution to the wind and just try it and
yeah,
see if it's for you.
yeah,
You know, we don't need any more. What's it? The vegetable that everybody's selling now. We don't need any more of those. We don't need any more of those companies. But do something that's you driven to do.
mhm,
Like I'm seeing a lot of people that are now starting their own blogs and vlogs and YouTube
yeah,
channels based on their experiences,
mhm,
but I can tell what they're talking about isn't an interest to them.
mm,
They're just using that to be seen and be heard and get out. And I can see them working through it, because then eventually you'll see them change and
mhm,
start talking about the stuff that they're actually
mm,
passionate about.
mm.
Are you afraid of this process at all?
Oh yeah, that's why I feel like you were definitely just talking to me just now. Uh, it's a matter of it's completely different for me. It's completely new. Being a natural introvert, it's doing the videos and posting them was a
Mhm.
big hurdle for me to get over. And
Right.
certain days, honestly, even recently, there's been days where it's like, oh man, I don't know, but I post it anyway. Because
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
is I know it's necessary. I know it's needed, and I know it's something that is going to benefit somebody in the long run. So yeah, jump starting it has definitely added to the fears, because is I've never done it before. I never done it before. So there's that excitement, but also that fear at the same time. So yes.
But you sound very well versed in it.
Hmm.
It sounds like something that you've been thinking about for years, not just
I
through
know,
this
right?
process. It
No,
sounds
right?
like something. I mean, unless you're good at just making it work, but it sounds like something that has been in you, and it has been in you. It's just you
Mm,
taking that time to think. I'm sorry to the people who have been sending comments, but they were
mm,
coming through at a
okay.
rapid rate. So thank you to everybody that's tuned in, that's listening, that's been
Mm,
listening throughout this. But I'm a we can talk after this, but I'm gonna pause this one and we can talk about what comes next, because I see
mm,
a lot of you in terms of people who I've interviewed, This has been a question that's been on a lot of people's head, and for me, it's been scary to focus on males and having that conversation with males because we're in a very hyper feminism movement right now, and I don't want to take away from that, but I don't want to leave men by the wayside either because we go through this ebb and flow with men issues, women's issues, and often one has to sit and wait for the other one to have that moment. And I think there's enough space, there's enough time and attention being put to everything else. Why not speak to men specifically and our fears, our inhibitions, our desires, things that hurt us, things that help us, and everything in between, that whole gray area in between. But this has been necessary for me. Sorry, it's been a necessity. It's been because I always learn the lesson that just reach out and talk to people, and that's one of the first things that you can do to getting over anything that you're going through or push forward with anything that you're trying to do. So I'll ask you my last question, and then you can throw any information that you want to put out there in terms of how people can reach you. Tell us a little bit more about your business, kind of wrap it in a shell so people understand what you're doing, and then how can they contact you if they want to be a part of your movement and such.
Okay. So I can be reached at _ Frederick McIver Instagram. That's my direct feed to Instagram. _ Frederick McIver, FREDERICK MCIVER. Facebook is my actual whole government. Frederick Brooks McIver.
They got to know what to write on that check, sir. Don't hide.
You're right.
Bank of America don't take Pookie checks. They want your real name.
You're right. I have it like that because I had an old account that I still use, but I forgot the password, so I had to open another one.
You're showing your age, sir. You're showing your age.
Sir. Hey, you gotta live it. You gotta embrace it. Otherwise, you will not be able to grow up more.
Right.
So, it's Frederick Brooks McIver, Brooks being my middle name, BROOKS. And there's a capital I in McIver. So that is that's my direct Facebook page where you can follow me.
Okay.
My email is FREDDY, Freddie, just like the caption on my head right there. Freddie M as in Mary 88. And that's at yahoo.com. That's my direct email. That's the email I check every day, every hour, periodically. If you can't reach me social media or via text or call, that is the best way to reach me. My direct line is 410-274-1772. If you want to text or call just to, check in maybe, or if you want to talk about maybe a mental illness that you may be struggling with, or if you just want to have your voice heard, you can reach me that way as well. My business that I am working on launching hasn't launched yet, but with the assistance of Brother Nate and
I wouldn't have reached out. So there you go.
I appreciate it. It will definitely be jumping off, I want to say, early December. I have to still work on a couple things. I have to make sure things are fleshed out. I don't like to start anything in mess. That's just the OCD in me. I'm sorry. But I have to make
trash. That trash.
I don't want there to be any trash in the program. I want there to be value in the program. So I'm putting the time in to make sure that no one will be involved with any trash. It will be a completely safe space for people to vent, talk, share, converse, just like we did, in a very safe, non-judgmental, friendly way. That's all I want. So I just want to make sure there's value in it. So I have to put in the work to make sure that is the case. So I'm working on that. I am, as I've said several times, a mental health coach and advocate. So you will see things on my page that speak to such. I am currently working on a mental health program as well that I plan to have married in with the fitness challenges that I will be jumpstarting. So all those things in due time. like I said, next month. So all those things in due time.
Or next week, however you look at it.
Hey, if God so will it to be next week, then everything would be lined up next week.
Okay.
Who am I to stop him? But right now, I am currently working on the next challenge for the Facebook post that I make. I'm not going to spoil what it's going to be, but I will say that I have been doing, some real thought into how to get it, not to say better, but how to, add more value or possibly more impact. So I am doing work on that as well, and that will be starting tomorrow. Okay. That will be started tomorrow. This is my day 2 of restoration. So tomorrow we're back at it. Don't stop.
So my last question to you would be, what advice would you give to your 17-year-old self, and what question would you ask to your 100-year-old self? So what advice to your 17-year-old self, and what question to your 100-year-old self?
17-year-old Fred. Oh my gosh, what was I doing? What was I doing at 17 years old? I was in high school. I believe I graduated high school when I was 18. So
what school did you go to?
I went to Northwestern.
Okay.
So I believe I was in my junior year, going into my senior year. Advice I would give my 17-year-old self: don't be afraid to speak out, man. Okay. Don't be afraid to speak out what you're feeling. Don't be afraid to cry. Oh my God. Don't be afraid to cry. Just don't be afraid of what you're feeling. Don't be afraid of what you're feeling, and don't be afraid to express that. That's what I would tell myself at 17. At 100, God willing, I make that. What I would ask myself: how did you keep doing it? How did you keep doing it? You're obviously still here. You did something right. How did you keep doing it? So
that question is very poignant, and most of my interviews that I do, I always end with that question, because 17 years old, like 30, is a eye-opening moment for you, and it's the first moment some of us get where the veil is lifted, and some of the things that we've been told or lied to about or distracted from, we start seeing it. We may not have the experience to be able to deal with it at that moment, but that's the kind of the first moment going into adulthood that we get that. For some of us get it earlier than that. Some of us get it later than that. Some of us are still looking for that to happen. But
it will happen.
So and the latter of the question is, most people ask the question of, was it worth it? But you're the first person who kind of went in a different direction with it. But it's kind of to balance us out a little bit, because sometimes we don't take that moment to go back to our younger selves or go forward to our older selves and address things. So there was no perfect way to answer the question, or right or wrong way, and you did a great job at answering that. So we're going to put your information in the description box, and I just want people to continue to tune in. My Wednesdays Let's Do Lunch series kind of waned off a little bit. This is actually episode number 3, and I'll continue to have conversations with people like Fred, and individuals that kind of is not a direction that this conversation goes, but it's specific about certain topic matters. So continue to tune in. You can go to the Artist Exchange radio show page and find others, or you can go to our YouTube page at the Artist Exchange Radio Show and find this episode and episodes like this. So
I love it.
Thank you. Any last minute statements or questions or anything you may have?
Well, I appreciate, you utilizing your platform to allow me to come on and just speak my truth. I do not take it for granted at all. I love it. Last year, I probably would have been like, what the hell is this, block? I appreciate,
Don't be that business person. Your DMs are similar as email. creeps can send you emails the same way they can send you DMs. So
yeah, I know. But in all seriousness, I don't take it for granted. I understand the importance of being able to be real with yourself, and to be able to do that can be a way to help somebody else be real and open with themselves. I've seen it in therapy. I've seen it in counseling. I see it in my family. I see it in my household. So I know it's real. So I want to use that as a means of encouragement for anybody. Hey, don't be afraid to be real with yourself. You got to be real with yourself first, though. I appreciate the opportunity, brother. I can't, this is my first time meeting you, and I learned so much about, I learned more about myself, and I appreciate the reaching out. And like I said, if you got to get a bone, you got to light a fire this week, like. But I appreciate reaching out and giving me the opportunity to just share. And if you need any support in future endeavors in your business and what you're doing as well, feel free to send me a shout out.
So don't log off yet. So peace out, everybody. Definitely share, like, subscribe to this podcast, and we'll see you at another date, possibly when he's ready to go on. But
I almost forgot. I always like to say at the end of my videos to keep your mind at peace and your heart at ease. That is not just an empty saying. I found that the mind and the heart work hand in hand, the whole body. Yeah. But your mind is a chaotic mess. Then how you express yourself will be chaotic. So as best you can, keep this in check and let that be at ease.
There we go. And that's a wrap.
All right.